The story begins with the fact that the War of the Gods has long been in the past, so the name Lin Jitsun has long been forgotten, and his daughter can sway with all his might on the swing and boast of this dad about it. However, the girl stopped laughing when she said that she had to tell her teacher about the wound of Qinjun, because of which he could not come to the meeting. The former god of war was a hero, but because of the injuries he could not move, and his daughter was often subjected to mockery because of this. Unfortunately, the tenant of Jitsuna also mocked his wife, and their daughters had to watch how a woman secretly cries at night. Ray Zhang really wanted dad to come to his senses as soon as possible, and the man felt terrible because he could not prevent the suffering of loved ones. Lin Jitsun saw her daughter's tears when she looked at him with hope and said that he would have learned these bad people. The girl had to turn away from her dad when a boy of her age appeared next to her and shouted that the vile girl was roaring again. Ray Zhang was not going to allow him to insult himself, so she shouted in response that she was not vile at all. But the bully looked at her with contempt and told rumors that the girl's mother walked her, and then took advantage of the man who was. Such disgusting, untruthful words were very angry with Ray Zhang, so she immediately jumped off the swing and came closer to Zhou Xiao. The girl was furious and screamed on her offender that if he laughs once again to insult her parents, he would receive for it in full. Due to such a rapid reaction, Ray Zhang, the boy lost a sense of his superiority, and in order to put her in place, pushed the girl to the ground. Zhou Xiao was larger than the girl, so the push turned out to be quite strong. In addition, behind the swing was still behind, and Ray hit her head. The bully rejoiced at someone else's pain and allowed himself to spit on another person, threatening his eyes if he sees that she was looking at him. Jing Ray felt helpless and squeezed the grass in her hands, while Zhou Xiao said that she was a small, vile animal. In the end, the girl could not stand the insults and, like an animal, attacked the guy, biting his hand. The parents of the bully stood nearby, and when the boy's mother saw that her son was attacked, she hastened to intervene. The woman kicked someone else's child at the same time, insulting her. Mother Xiaohu screamed that the girl of cattle, who lacks yuping. Zhang Rei was on the floor again, but now she angrily looked at a woman who behaved no better than her son. She raised the girl from the ground, not paying attention to her screams, and carried to the side of Xiao because she wanted to make her humiliate. After the woman released Ray, she began to scream so that the girl knelt down and immediately apologizes. Lin Qizun sat in a wheelchair, and his inner energy stuck from such injustice in relation to his daughter. Fury and desire to protect the man overwhelmed when he looked at Zhang Rei's suffering. His daughter cried and sincerely did not understand why she should apologize to those who first began to call on. Then Father Xiao intervened in this quarrel. The man grabbed the girl by the tail and pulled it strongly, ordering to apologize. Zhang Rei continued to resist two adults and for this received a slap from the woman. Mother Xiao looked at the little girl as if she was no more than garbage and asked if she was sure of her words. The daughter of Kitsuna was well aware that the opponents were much superior to her, but stubbornly refused to bow to them. Father Xiaohu waved to Zhang Rei and shouted that today he would teach a good lesson for a bitch like her. But to the great surprise for all participants in the conflict, Lin Jitsun stopped the man's hand. The former god of war was furious. He held the man and asked how he dared to touch Zhang Rei. The day came when Lin Feng returned his strength, and he stated that from that moment anyone who touches his daughter would be killed. Father Xiao, who enjoyed his superiority a minute ago, now felt his life hanging in the balance. From that day on, Lin Jitsun was not going to allow anyone to humiliate his family. Lin Feng pressed the offender to his daughter to the ground and beat him, while his mother Xiao helplessly watched this. The woman was very worried about her husband and tried to figure out how she could help him. In the end, she decided to go to Lin Fan and hit him and scream so that he would not dare to beat her husband. Mother Yaohu pointed to Kitsun and threatened him with the police right now. Father Jiang Rei did not allow the woman to end the threat, as she was thrown back from the power with which he gave a slap in the face. Mother Xiuk lay on the grass when Lin Fei reminded her that she had received her for hitting his daughter. The anger overwhelmed Kitsun, and he ordered to remember this day when he spared their lives, despite the fact that they mocked his daughter. Lin Feng with memories was transferred to one of his battles. Then he fought against a huge number of soldiers. He prompted the last warrior and breathed heavily, and his whole body was in abrasions and not deep scratches. However, suddenly, Lin Jitzun heard someone said that he was capable of prompting the 10,000th army alone. Therefore, he quickly turned his gaze towards his voice. New warriors landed in front of him, who were not going to give a man so easily to win. One of the soldiers looked at Lin Feng and admitted that, such as he really worthy of the title of great. Before the lonely warrior stood 7 sons of the Western Alliance, and the guy with blonde hair said that today he would die from their hands. Such a self-confident statement from his opponents made Lin Feng smile slightly. Then he raised his spear and shouted that he had been fighting for 6 years and did not think that he should be afraid of them. The leader of the Raws of the Western Alliance rushed to the attack, although he respected their enemy as a warrior. But for Jitsun himself, this did not matter. The soldiers owned different types of weapons and jumped on a man from above, preventing him from surviving. Lin Feng dodged a blade strike, but a blow to the handle of a spear fell into his core. But, despite this, Lin Jitsun did not shake and was able to throw one of the sons of the Western Alliance from himself with the help of his spear. The leader, in whose hands were flambergs, found himself behind the man and was sure that he would inflict a mortal blow to him. Lin Fan had to act very quickly to have time to beat off someone else's attack. The spear plunged into the enemy's body, and the hands with the blade sank down, never ending the attack. Due to a serious injury, the leader began to go from his mouth. But he himself could not believe that this was generally possible. Lin Fen explained to the enemy that he was too weak, and even with the 10,000th army he would not move him a meter ago. The remaining 3 members of the alliance was just a meter, when Jitsun made several chopping strokes and told the soldiers to blame themselves for a loss. The movements of the spear Lin Feng were so fast and confident that the warriors did not even have time to react in any way. Only at the last moment did they understand that now they would come to an end, and they could no longer do anything. With strong blows, Lin Jitsun threw away all the members of the alliance from him, shouting that they were only stumbling on his way home. Now the man again stood alone on the battlefield and believed that if he put things in order in the country, then everything would be calm at home. After the active part of the fight ended, the missed blows began to make themselves felt, and blood appeared in the mouth. Lin Fan's eyes closed, but he knew that he could not die, because his daughter still needed a bone marrow transplant. From this memory, Zhang Rei, who constantly called him and clung to his father's legs, pulled out from this memory. The man was very glad to see his daughter. He smiled at her and said that he had come, because Xin called him. Lin Fen took Jiang Rei in his arms until the girl could believe that this was really her father. And Jitsun promised to kill the whole family if they did not bow 100 times. The Jo family bowed and apologized with every bow and said that they made a mistake. The girl cried loudly when she said that everyone around was hating Dad. But the man promised that she would no longer allow anyone to mock Yusin. Zhang Rei continued to cry and complain that no one believed her that Lin Fen hero, and her mother was always very upset. The man listened to his daughter, but he had to be distracted when he realized that his body had not completely restored. He was upset, but understood that he needed to awaken to protect his family. Yuisin, although she was upset, immediately noticed that her dad was hard and asked to let her go down. Lin Fan obeyed and gently put the girl on the floor, although he tried to convince her that everything was in order with him. The man sat down next to Zhang Rei and stroked her crown, offering to go home to his mother. Yuisin said that their grandmother kicked them out and forbade them to come home because my mother had to talk with Uncle Sun. Lin Fan frowned and realized that in this situation there was some kind of catch, since he was sent a girl. Little Zhang Rei leaned toward Dad and whispered him to pretend to be sleeping again. Lin Jitsun smiled at his daughter and told her that she had offered a good idea, and they would do that. The man returned to the invalid chair with Yuisin to embody their plan to life. He sat in a chair, and the girl began to scream that he again became so due to the fact that the Jo family beat him. Zhang Rei turned to a frightened couple and stated that he was walking for his uncle, and then they would end. The girl began to push the dad in the direction of the house, and the parents of Zhou Xiao believed that they wanted to demand compensation for adjusted damage. After some time, they finally found themselves before the main entrance to the house. In the corridor, there was an adult woman who was very unhappy with their appearance, so she immediately went out to them. She insulted the girl and recalled that she did not allow her to bring Lin Fan back until she calls them. Yuisin was hiding behind a wheelchair and not boldly admitted to her grandmother that she and Dad were very tired. However, the woman was not going to listen and understand the girl. So in a furious, she ordered her to shut up. She pointed to Lin Fan and screamed so that Jiang Rei did not dare to call this cripple her dad. Yuisin puffed out her cheeks from injustice and continued to insist that she would call him her father. Then the girl heard someone else's male voice, who said that it would be an honor for him to spend life with Jinya. After that, a tall man came out of the house who was about to leave their house. Lin Feng darkened when his daughter whispered that this man was the same Uncle Song with whom his mother spoke. Sinyu was a young, beautiful girl who looked frustrated and said that she would like to consider his marriage proposal. Sun Yan allowed the girl to think about it yet, but was sure that he would make a good impression on her. The man turned around and saw that in the yard there was a little girl and a man in a stroller right in front of him. He realized that this was the daughter of Jinye, so he sank to the girl and began to flutter her cheeks, saying, "Which girl is sweet?" Mother Jinye ordered Sinyu not to stand still, but to go and hold a guest. But the girl refused. And since there was no time for disputes, the woman decided to spend Sun Yan on her own. Grandmother Yuisin ran away for the guest to find out how their meeting went, leaving behind the upset daughter. Zhang Rei made conclusions after observing the situation and whispered to Dad that this man wants to steal their mom. Sinyu called her daughter, and with all the accuracy and tenderness took a small pen in her palms. The girl crouched opposite the girl and thanked her for taking care of Dad today. Yuisin began to cry and ask her mother, was she really looking for a new dad? But Xinya promised that this would not happen. Zhang Rei raised a believing glance at her mother and said that she had heard Uncle Sun's words when he left the house. Sinyu wiped her daughter's tears and noticed a trace on her face. The woman asked if her daughter quarreled with someone again. The girl did not want to upset her mother, so she lied that she just fell and rushed to her in her arms. In the courtyard, they remained only the three of them, and Sinyu proposed returning to the house and put Yuisin in order. After returning to the house, a little time passed, and Zhang Rei was sent to his room, and the parents were left alone. Sinyu sat on the bed in front of Lin Fan and tried to understand how to do the right thing in this situation. The girl called him, and Jitsun was agitated that he was so quickly bursting out and realized that he had come to his senses. But Xin Hu admitted that although she knows that he does not hear her, and not in consciousness, but could not remain silent. Such words of the girl made Lin Feng worry even more, and he had to make efforts so as not to give himself out. Sinyu gently stroked her husband's hair and said with tears in her eyes that Yuisin was saved when he sacrificed himself. But the eldest daughter of the Jiang family also wanted her daughter to have a strong and happy family. Zhang Xinhu laid her hand to Lin Feng's feet and continued to talk about what was bothering her. The girl was lying on her husband's knees and with tears in her eyes said that she was ready to marry Sun Yan if he would treat their daughter well. Yusin's mother was not easy to make such a decision, but now she felt that it remained honest with Lin Fan. She rose to her feet and sincerely apologized to the man who continued to sit silently in his chair. The girl began to leave and Zitsun thought that she experienced a lot for all the time that he was absent. On the other hand, a loud knock was heard and the guy realized that he was not alone in the room. Zhang's younger sister came out of the bathroom and said that Lin Feng was just a miserable. Her sister was getting married, and he was sitting in blissful ignorance. The man did not expect to see Zhang Xinho in their room, and even though he did not respond in any way to her words, he was tense inside. A young girl went into a dance to a wheelchair, and then she threw off her wet towel. She took the man by the chin and regretted that such a nice person was so useless. A melody began to play in the room, which was distracted by Jian Xin from looking at someone else's face. The girl lay down on the bed and greeted the future Shirin when she took a call. Her legs were in the face of Lin Feng, and the man at the other end of the wire asked if that thing worked on Xinye. The man was distracted from his feet and began to listen to the conversation, realizing that Sun Yan called the girl. Zhang Xinye said that her sister would sooner or later accept his offer, and the drug is completely optional. However, Sun Yan did not think so, so he suggested the younger Jia to buy everything she wants. The girl only achieved this, so immediately demanded a handbag and a couple of shoes that she promised on the condition that everything would go as it should. Zhang Xinye headed for her sister's closet and promised that they would do everything that Sun Yan would say. She dressed in one of the jacket and asked the future Shirin to change the clothes of Xinye as soon as they got married. Soon the girl left the bedroom, and Lin Feng was left alone in the center of the room. The man was considering what he heard. It was difficult for him to accept Zhang Xinyi's act, especially the fact that she uses such methods to obtain what she desired. The window in the bedroom Lin Feng and Zhang Xignos was open, and the light wind developed the curtain. A girl appeared in front of a wheelchair. She worshipped the great and was glad that he finally woke up. The man recognized in the girl Xiao Qing and asked why she was not guarding the border. The girl, without raising her eyes, admitted that the great is now more important than the border, especially since after his last battle no one dared to break the border. Lin Feng carefully listened to his subordinate and asked if there was any more news for him. Xiao Qing darkened and said that over these 2 years he was surrounded by ill-wishers and those who want to take his wife. But without an order, the girl does not pray to do anything. So now she asked permission to kill all the villains. Jitsun listened to her and barely restrained his rage. The man realized that while he was recovering, Some unscrupulous people had already managed to get closer. However, now he was more worried about Song Yan. So he asked Xiaoqing to bring all the information about him. The girl accepted the order of the Great and said that she would immediately collect information and bring her as soon as possible. The subordinate left the room through the window as quickly and imperceptibly as it appeared. And Lin Feng was left alone again. But he did not have to sit alone for long because the door opened and Yusin cheerfully told his mother about a surprise. The girl brought her mother to her father and reminded her about a fairy tale in which the prince kissed the sleeping beauty and she woke up. Jiang Rui smiled joyfully at her mother and promised that if she kisses Dad, he would also come to her senses. Jiang Xinhu did not know what to answer so as not to upset her daughter, so she seriously considered her words. She leaned toward Yusin, stroked her up the crown, and with a smile told her that this story was just a fairy tale. The girl knew that Dad had already woken up and wanted to make Mom find out about it, so she insisted to try. Xinyu did not believe that it would work, but could not refuse her beloved daughter. So she agreed. The girl went to her husband, grabbed his cheeks, and carefully looked at Lin Feng's face. The man had not seen his wife for so long and understood that she would really kiss him now. Jiang Xinhu put all her love into this kiss, because in the depths of her soul, the hope that the guy would wake up. Yuisin spied through her hands and thought that now Dad would come to her senses, and Mom would jump from happiness. But, to her, Lin Feng did not react in any way. And Xinyu was able to confirm that this story was just a fairy tale. The girl was very upset and did not understand why Dad did not rise and did not show his mother that he came to his senses. Jiang Xinhu took her daughter's hand in her palms and promised that Yuisin would find a new dad, since this one does not wake up. Jiang Rui pulled out her hand and began to scream that her mother is a deceiver. The girl cried and reminded that her mother promised not to look for a new dad. Yuisin grabbed her father by the hand and tried to raise him herself. She sobbed with hopelessness and begged him to wake up. Jiang Xinhu could not look at this picture without tears and understood what she needed to find a dad for the girl. Jiang Rui was sure that Lin Feng was hearing her and begging her to tell her mother that he had already recovered. It was very difficult for a man to pretend, and he mentally apologized to his daughter, but understood that for a start, he needed to reveal the true appearance of Sun Yan. Yuisin saw that Dad was not reacting, and her grip was gradually weak, and she continued to cry. Xinyu took her daughter and tried to explain to her that until Lin Feng woke up, she needed someone who would take care of her. The girl did not agree with this. She continued to reach for Dad, and when he continued to be silent, she shouted that he was the same deceiver as his mother. Jiang Xinhu was forced to take away a daughter from the room. She asked her not to scream at her father, but Yusin could not believe that Dad would allow Mom to replace him. This hard day was drawing to an end and already darkly dark. In the whole huge house of Jiang, the light burned in only one room. Yuisin was still able to fall asleep. There were still tears in her eyes, and through a dream she muttered that all around the deceivers. Jiang Xinye sat next to her daughter and felt terribly guilty in front of her when the door to the nursery opened. A blue appeared in the doorway, who reminded her sister about the evening banquet and asked why the girl was still at home. The older sister did not react in any way, even when they began to pull her by the hand, and Xinye assured that they were obliged to go. The girl thought about her sister's words that Sun Yan could give Yuisin everything she wants. Xinye simply wanted her daughter to be happy and not fall asleep with tears in her eyes, so she felt obligated to go. Lin Feng was still in the bedroom when Xiaoqing appeared through the open window in the room. There was an envelope in the girl's bunes, and she reported to the Great that she collected all the necessary information about Sun Yana. After that, she handed the envelope and reminded that today is the day of the birth of the mistress, and a banquet was arranged in her honor, on which she will be in 40 minutes. Lin Feng accepted the envelope with information and thanked his subordinate for the well-done work. The man opened the envelope and took out a stack of papers from there and began to carefully read their contents. Jitsun could not believe that this little Song family thought that no one would guess about their intentions. Lin Feng began to get up from his wheelchair and ordered Xiaoqing to prepare. The man was going to go to the celebration of his birthday, and the girl had to go with him. Jiang's sisters were near the hotel in 40 minutes, and a smiling employee politely greeted them. The girl asked if Mr. Suna came in armor, and when Xinye confirmed this, they said that they were lucky. The employee reported that a separate room was booked for them, and it is very difficult to do this in their hotel. All three girls went into the hall and could not believe what they saw. Jiang Xinye expressed particular admiration. She asked her older sister to look at a huge arch with a sign, which congratulated Xinyu on her birthday. The eldest Jiang could not share the delight of her younger sister, and soon she heard Sun Yan calling them. The man corrected his glasses and was surprised that his father was booked the entire hotel, although he did not show this outwardly. Jang Sinya quickly turned out to be next to the future Shuren, and chuckling said that he was not a mistake. At that moment, steps were heard in the corridor of the hotel, and the little girl greeted Jinyu. The child was dressed in an angel costume, and in her hands there was a box with a chic ring, which was intended for the birthday girl. Shinya's eyes sparkled when she saw a golden ring with a huge diamond, and she wanted to look at him closer. Next to Jang Sin-hyu and a little girl, Song Yan appeared, who took a box with a ring and turned to the girl. The man decided that his father was very afraid of the refusal of Shinya. Since he bought such a ring, Sun Yan sank to his knee and made an offer. Hotel workers who watched this scene whispered that the Song family did not spare money for engagement. The guy took Xinyu by the hand and promised that he would love her with all his heart, and he would always take care of her. The man looked at his chosen one and asked if she agreed to accept his proposal. Jang Sin-hyu was very difficult to make a decision. Her soul was torn into two halves and she was silent. Xiaoqing and Lin Feng sat behind the piano and carefully watched the hotel in the lobby of the hotel. The subordinate asked the great if she should drive this insolent, but Jitsun asked to wait. The man looked at his wife, and he was very worried that she herself would answer someone else's proposal. Jang Sinya took her hand from Sun Yan and said that all this is too unexpected for her. The girl was worried who would take care of Lin Fan if he does not wake up. And Sinya, in a panic, tried to convince her sister to agree. Sun Yan again heard that the girl needed to think, but this time he was not going to retreat. The man got up and began to blame the girl for her ingratitude, because he took off the whole hotel for her and promised to take care of her daughter. Sinya tried to reason her sister, but Zinya did not think that she should marry him, because he was rich and influential. In addition, it was very angry that Sun Yan dared to reproach her daughter, so she refused his offer. The girl was very surprised when, despite her refusal, the man dared to reach out to her. Sun Yan pressed Jang Sin-hyu, who tried to break free. The man said that without him, the Jiang family will stop existing. Yan tried to prove to the girl that she had no choice, but other people's threats did not work. The man whispered that Zinya should be obedient, so that her daughter would take care of, as it should. Sun Yan announced that today is his wedding day, and he pays for everyone, so the guests began to praise the Song family. Lin Fan did not like this attitude to his wife, and he told Xiaoqing that she knew what to do. In a second, the girl was behind the impudent man who continued to climb to Jiang Xinhui. Xiaoqing grabbed Sun Yan's hand, forcing him to look at the one who prevented him. Fan's subordinate Lin was furious and ordered the guy not to paw the mistress. The guards immediately rushed to Mr. Sunday, but Yan looked confident in himself and with a gesture reassured the guards, and then ordered everyone to leave. The man decided that he was stopped by another beauty who was simply jealous of him to the new bride. He stroked the indignant Xiaoqing on his cheek and asked if she really wanted her to be hugged. The guards watched his actions and admired what Mr. Song, a talented person, has the right to use all the benefits of the world. The subordinate Lin Feng did not tolerate such an attitude and hit the man in the face, breaking his glasses. Xiaoqing towered over him and said that rudeness deserves a slap in the face, until the evil guy could believe in what had happened. Sun Yan grabbed his cheek and ordered his guards to immediately kill this girl. The men obeyed and rushed to her with fists and screams that she did not understand what she was involved in. The guard was very surprised when he saw that instead of retreating, the girl put her hand in front of his forehead. And with the help of one light movement, Xiaoqing threw back the first attacker. After that, she also easily neutralized 3 more guards, without making much effort. The men were on the floor, and one of the guards looked at his wounded colleagues and did not understand how this happened. Sun Yan was furious. He shouted that he was the heir to the Song family and they are now in his family. Xiaoqing looked down at him and said that the insignificant Song family should behave more modest. Jang Sin-hyu, you are very interesting who this girl is, and she was very surprised when the subordinate line congratulated her on his birthday. Suddenly, a very beautiful music began to play in the hotel lobby, and some man screamed so that everyone looked at the stage. Jang's sisters turned their heads and saw that a beautiful man was sitting behind the piano and playing this wonderful melody. Sinya could not take her eyes off the man and screamed that he was a handsome man. But the older sister recognized Lin Feng. Xiaoqing confirmed that on the stage her master said that the girl was a worthy wife, and Xian asked to be careful in words. Sun Yan, you are over his rage when you saw that someone came to the hotel, which was booked by his family, and loudly called the manager. The hotel officers heard his screams, and the manager asked his brother Van to call someone in the hall. Soon a huge number of men appeared in the main hall of the hotel, and the manager said that they were too careless. The hotel worker apologized and said that soon they would decay everything, and Mr. Song felt anxiety because of a large number of guards. But he was also pleased with himself when he understood that the impudent girl who dared to hit him would get what he dared to hit him. Sun Yan pointed to Xiaoqing and Xinyu and ordered the guards to take away these two women. However, the men did not listen to his instructions, but rather began to pull him out of the hotel. Mr. Song shouted at the manager while trying to get out of someone else's capture, and tried to explain to everyone that he was from the Song family. The hotel employees smiled at the guy and said that there really was an error, because the one who took off the entire hotel is of the surname Lin. At first, Sun Yan began to behave smugly, but then in a panic realized that everything did not go according to plan. The manager went to Xiaoqing and apologized for their mistake, and then ordered the guests to listen and throw the master from here. Sun Yan was dragged from the hall with his guards, not paying attention to his cries. The manager thought that compared to Mr. Lin, Mr. Sun was just a non-insignificance and said by the walkie-talkie, which prohibits the allowing the whole family of Sun into their hotel. The attention of Jiang Xinhui was again completely drawn to the person who played on the piano, and the girl tried to examine his face. The eldest Jiang was very interesting to really whether her husband Lin Feng was sitting there. Xinyu asked Xiaoqing about this, but she said that the girl would turn to her master with this question. Jin's younger sister was delighted with a beautiful and rich man with whom her sister was familiar and very much asked her to introduce her to him too. But Xinyu said she did not know him, and the rest of the guests delighted the unique melody that Mr. Lin played. After that, the noise of the explosions attracted their attention, and one of the guests asked all those present to look at the sky. When they raised their heads, they saw that the whole sky was strewn with fireworks, and in the center there was an inscription that congratulated the birthday girl. Jiang Xinyu was delighted with such a romantic gesture, and Xinyu had mixed emotions. After she read the surname Lin, the girl suddenly felt the need to check whether it was her husband. Jiang Xinyu turned sharply and tried to run towards the piano. Well, the younger sister did not allow her to run away, grabbing her hand. However, the girl did not linger next to Xinyu, pulled out her hand and ran on. She got to the stage, did not run to the piano in complete confidence that Lin Feng was waiting for her there. Only to her great chagrin in the room there was no one, and she tried to understand why he left. Behind her, an angry sister appeared, who convinced Xinyu that her colleague was at home. The girl listened to the words of Xinyu and decided that the guy went home, and now she also needed to go back. Lin Feng really left the hotel and headed home, so he ended up in the room before his wife. Next to him was Xiaoqing, which he asked to collect all the affairs of the Jiang family and convey to him. The girl apologized for frankness. Her mother said, "Who people like the Song family did not require him to personally deal with them." Lin Feng smiled at his subordinate and asked if she was really worried about the consequences that someone learns about his awakening. Since Xiaoqing stood by the window, she immediately saw the car and reported to the boss that the lady was returning. In addition, the girl said that she would execute the order, but now she should leave. Lin Feng changed his old clothes, as he planned to hide the news about his awakening for some time. And although he did not want to upset his wife, he was forced to keep the secret. Jiang Xinyu ran past her mother. Do not pay attention to her questions about how the celebration of birthday passed. The girl purposefully climbed her bedroom, and the woman screamed after her that nothing had changed in the vegetable room. Jiang Xinyu walked after her sister and was upset about her mother that Xinyu had done today at the festival. The girl showed a man's record and said that this rich man, in the name Lin, took off the entire Jiangzhou hotel for the elder Jiang. The woman again began to call her eldest daughter, and convinced her that she would not force her to marry Sun Yan if she knew about such a rich boyfriend. Jiang Xinyu sharply opened the door to her bedroom and called Lin Feng in the hope that he woke up. Tears came to her eyes when the girl saw that Lin Feng was still immobilized sitting in a stroller. Xinyu was sure that then she saw her husband at the hotel, but now her whole confidence evaporated. She cried and recalled how 5 years ago the family forced her to marry Sun Yan, whom she hated. Therefore, she was very glad when her grandfather invited her to marry the general. But Lin Feng spent one night with her and then disappeared. After that, Yusin was born to them and the girl became a ray of hope in the world of Xinye. When their daughter fell ill and needed a bone marrow transplant, Lin Feng appeared and saved Ray to the detriment of his health. Jiang Xinyu continued to cry when she thought about it. She understood that although their daughter was saved, her husband became a vegetable. The girl again knelt before him and begged the man to return to her, because she could no longer live like that. Lin Feng looked at his wife's heart, bursting with pain, and he mentally promised that she had to wait quite a bit. Jiang Xinya watched this picture and could not understand what her sister found in this vegetable who lives at someone else's expense. The girl remembered the beautiful and rich Mr. Linya and did not understand what this garbage was better. The younger sister went into the room and asked the girl to go with her to a bar called Fate. Jiang Xinya did not want to go anywhere and said that tomorrow she promised to take Yuisin to school, so she offered to go the next day. But Xinya did not want to retreat. She dragged the girl behind her and said that they needed to relax. And all because after what happened to her, Sun Yan called and asked to fulfill his part of the transaction. The girl did not want to do this at first, but the man promised that you can make Mr. Lin become the husband of Xinya. The younger Jiang believed in this lie and promised to bring her sister to the desired bar tonight. Therefore, now Jiang Xinya tried to achieve the desired result with the help of her sister. It worked, and despite her desire to go to Xinyu, agreed and went to correct the makeup. The younger Jiang was delighted. She hugged her sister and shouted that the best one. When the girl headed for the exit from the bedroom, Xinya escorted her with an evil smile. Then she leaned toward Lin Feng and told him that after today, her sister would finally divert with such a discharge. Xinyu called the girl and put a man alone and hurried a trace of her sister. Through the window, Xiaoqing appeared in the room and reported that she recognized all the latest matters of the Zhang family. It turned out that their company had a financial crisis, and the Song family promised to stop him if the girl goes for their son. Lin Feng frowned and said that Sun Yan is very prudent and now they will look at who faster the teeth of the Song family or his blade. The man watched the car with his wife driving away from home, and he ordered his subordinate to follow the movements of Sun Yan. And Sun Yan sat in a bar called Fate, and the waiters noticed that the man looked joyful. The guy was added a glass of a drink and asked if he really has good news. The man laughed fluently and said that he had just great news, and others congratulated him with this. Soon the sisters Jiang entered the bar, and the eldest asked if they had already come to the right place. Jiang Xinhu corrected her hair and looked so beautiful that she caught her breath. The men looked at the girls and embarrassedly noted what beauties they were, and Sun Yan smiled pretty. He got up from his place and began to go to the girls, welcoming Xinya. However, the girl did not see him and demanded from him an explanation why he was here, and her younger sister desperately tried to smooth out the corners. The eldest Jiang guessed that Xinya conspired with this person to lure her into this bar. The man appeared next to her and tried to convince Xinya to stay. He asked Xinhu to bring her here to apologize. Sun Yan bowed to the girl and admitted that he had acted rash, so he apologizes and would like to talk about it. Jiang Xinhu mentally admitted that their family needs to rely on his family, so do not spoil the relationship. She said that she understands everything and people actually make mistakes. The man, in turn, promised that this would not happen again, and he mentally waited for the moment when he dragged the girl to bed and makes her answer for everything. Sun Yan went to the steam rack and took a glass. He began to pour wine to the girl. The guy once again apologized and took advantage of the fact that her attention was distracted through the vocal tablet. The man asked to accept the glass of wine as an apology, but Xinyu refused because she was driving. Jiang Xinya invited the girl to drink at least a little to convince the guy that she forgave him. Sun Yan picked up the girl and said that nothing would happen from one glass. So the older Jiang took a glass. Xinya gave up and drowned all the wine in one gulp so that these two lagged behind her. Jiang Xinya smiled and said that we are now a man should believe in her sister's sincerity. Sun Yan was beside himself with joy and was already looking forward to how he would take possession of the girl that night. A few moments later, the head of Xinyu began to spin. She suddenly became bad. The wife of Lin Feng tried to tell her sister that they needed to return, but the impudent guy pushed her back and became nearby. After that, he grabbed the girl in his arms, although she resisted, and sent Jinho to have fun. There were a lot of people in the bar. They all smiled, danced, and had fun when Xiaoqing reported that they grabbed Xinye. Lin Feng ordered the subordinate right now to find out what hotel she was and replied to him in a second that she was in the Grand of the Milky Way Hotel. The Great was angry and ordered his subordinates to inspect the situation, but he wanted to cope with the main problem. Sun Yan really moved the girl to the hotel called Mletl, which was near the bar. Jiang Xinhu did not understand what was happening. She tried to understand where they were and what a man was going to do with her. The girl said that she wanted to go home, but this disgusting man did not listen to her and tried to convince the girl that she drank and she knew what she was doing in the hotels. Sun Yan grabbed his victim by the chin and told her that today they would have to sleep, which means that his life is not in vain. Although Xinyu was under the influence of drugs, she was not going to give up so easily and pushed off her unscrupulous man. A crazy smile appeared on his face when he said that he did not expect that the victim would resist the action of the pill. Sun Yan behaved like a maniac, and when Zhu Yuya tried to crawl, he shouted that the more she was resisting, the more he was worried. The man grabbed the girl by the hand and said that she could not escape because there are full of his people around. Jang Sin-hyu felt disgust and tried to fight off the rapist while he continued to paw her even more. The girl understood that she needed to resist all her might, so at the first opportunity she bit the attacker in the ear. The rapist got angry and pulled the girl by the hair. He shouted that if she continued, he would find his death. The man strangled his victim, saying that she was guilty since she did not want to marry him. Sin-yu at that moment could only think about her husband. Just at that moment, the door to the room opened and Lin Feng appeared on the threshold. The rapist did not recognize this man and shouted at him. The hero of the war frightened his appearance with one look and promised Sun Jian that he would send his whole family to the cemetery if he touches Sin-yu again. The eldest Jiang could not believe her eyes. Her husband stood in front of them, who saved her from the rapist in the person of the son of the Song family. Sun Yan was in no hurry to depart from his victim, for which he received from Lin Feng in his face and flew to the floor. The man carefully examined the unexpected guest and tried to understand how the guy from a wheelchair could now stand here. The rapist once again remained without glasses and, sitting on the floor, decided to admit his defeat. Now, in addition to the abrasion on the cheek, Fingal appeared on Sun Yan's face, and he was sure that these two conspired against him. Such an absurd assumption angered Lin Feng even stronger, and he hoped to write off this nonsense on someone else's intoxication. The son of the family Song got up on trembling legs and assured that he would be saved now. Such confidence Yan had a guy. The rapist felt that superiority on his side began to tell that such a cripple would never cope with people like him. The man threatened Lin Fan that he would harm his wife if he dares to touch him. Then they would be buried together. It was impossible to listen to such empty threats. So the hero of the war could not stand it and asked that this insignificance carries for nonsense. Lin Feng decided that this time he would be limited only to a warning when Sun Yan began to snap again. A beaten man took out his phone and promised the enemy that they would soon find out which of them is a real insignificance. But Yan's hand was intercepted, and Lin Feng asked if he was the hand that he touched Sin-yu. Now the confidence of the Song family was dissolved, and he asked with fear what the man was going to do. Lin Feng began to turn someone else's hand, and the rapist felt terrible pain and ended that he would be released soon. When the pain became stronger than the heir to the family, Song began to say that his family would not leave his death so simply. In response to this statement, the man hit the rapist on the kneecup and he knelt down. Lin Fei towered over the son of the Song family and expressed that he was still on his influential family. He turned away from the rapist and promised that if the guy brings problems again, he would not wait for mercy. Jang Sin-hyu felt her eyelids heavily, and it was difficult to remain conscious. Her husband approached her. He took off his jacket and covered her girl, promising that now he was nearby, and from that moment everything would be all right. But these words could not completely reassure her, so she reminded that the guy would go to jail for the murder. Sun Yan began to gloating and revel in the words of the girl. He again felt confident and began to mock Lin Fan. The hero of the war again went to the rapist and began to think over their words. For the murder of man, he would sit down. But in his eyes, Yan was not a man. The guy took the rapist by the head and pushed to the floor. For himself, he issued a verdict, and the heir to Sun was an animal. Sun Yan began to pray for mercy, while someone else's leg pressed him to the floor, and he received a promise that he would not die so easily and only when it would not be needed. Lin Feng removed his leg, but in order to live with the heir Sun, a condition appeared. He had to pay. The fear of death absorbed the rapist, and his whole body trembled when he tried to understand what the man had in mind. The hero of the war looked at the insignificance that dared to encroach on his wife, against her will, and said that he would show now. Sun Yan tried to persuade Lin Feng to retreat, but the alien leg with all his might stepped on the most vulnerable place of the man, forcing him to scream in pain. Now Jitsun felt that his duty was fulfilled and could leave the rapist to bend on the floor. The man took his wife in his arms and she came to her senses. The girl examined Lin Feng, heard his voice, and was happy that he saved her. Jang Sin-hyu was very afraid that in the end, it would all be just a dream, and did not allow herself to believe in the reality of what was happening. But her husband promised that this was not a dream and apologized for his delay. And then he kissed the girl, investing all his love. The hero of the war called Xiao Qing so that the girl would take his wife home and let the doctor examine, because it was early to open. The servant Lin Feng smiled pretty and was ready to fulfill any order of her master. In just 2 years, the world has forgotten about the great Lina, and now the Song family will become only a step towards his return. Soon Fei returned to the Jiang family house. He went into the bedroom and saw that the baby Yuisin was standing near the bed and was sleeping, leaning on the mattress. The girl felt male hands that lift her into the air and woke up. When she turned around, she saw Dad. Zhang Rui hugged her father and cried. She admitted that she was very afraid not to see him anymore. Lin Feng told his daughter that he went to his mother, and then the girl was worried that they did not return together. The man reassured Yuisin and promised that his mother would return soon. Dad pierced the girl's cheek, and this helped her calm down. The baby was worried about her father's health, but the man convinced her that he was just tired and it was time for them to sleep, and his mother would return a little later. Lin Feng considered his duty to provide Blue with a carefree life. The man was going to go to his room when the girl grabbed his hand. Yuisin looked frustrated, and she was tormented by the question of whether her father would leave the night. Because once he had already lied to her about a surprise for her mother, Dad smiled at the baby and admitted that his plans have changed. And now, in no case should anyone talk about his awakening. Xin promised that she would not even tell his mother, and she and Dad vowed to keep the secret in the police officers. Meanwhile, the doctor in the Zhangzhou hospital carefully examined the tests of one of the patients. She came to the ward to Sun Yan and said that the only way out is the operation. But the risks for his life are very large. The young heir to the family Song felt as if he was signed by the verdict when the doctor said that their only way out was amputated. This terrible news made the guy scream throughout the hospital, promising to force Lin Feng to pay for it. Zhang Xinhu did not calmly sleep in her bedroom, and her daughter patiently waited for her mother's awakening. Finally, the girl opened her eyes and realized that she was in her room. And then Yusin's voice heard. The head of Xinhui spun a little after the drug, and the daughter laughed joyfully and said that her mother was real Sonia. The girl remembered the events of yesterday evening and immediately began to interest the question of her returning home. The eldest Jiang immediately found her husband with her eyes and saw that he, as always, was chained to a wheelchair. Xinhui began to cry when she realized that she had been dreaming and saved her not at all Feng. Yuisin took her mother's face in her small pens and asked her not to cry, because Dad would definitely protect them. Suddenly, the mother of Xinyi burst into the room, who demanded an explanation from her daughter about who gave her a pill. The eldest Jiang hugged her daughter and said that Sun Yan poured her a drug into wine. But someone managed to save her. The woman turned around and was ready to go and figure out those who dared to encroach on her daughter's honor. But she stopped abruptly and asked if the girl was talking about the heir to the Song family, the young Mr. Sun Yan. Zhang Xinhu was 100% sure of his fault, so she confirmed her words. But Jiang Xinye understood what this could lead to and wanted to pretend that this is all a misunderstanding and her future groom is pointless to do such things. Li Tsuyin did not want to quarrel with the Song family because they depended on them, and decided that her daughter was simply deceiving her. Such a distrust of my grandmother very angered the baby Yuisin, and she screamed that her mother was never lying. The woman threatened her child with his fist and reminded that the children are silent when they say adults, otherwise they get on the ass. Lin Feng understood that his wife would not believe him. They would also force her to ask for forgiveness, if only not to lose the patronage of the Song family. Li Tsuin exhaled heavily and admitted that this is not important. She was more worried about Li Mr. Song. At that moment, the woman's phone rang, and she felt a small wave of fear. Mr. Song himself called her, and she did not know what to do. Jiang Xian advised her mother to answer rather. The woman picked up the phone and everyone in the room heard the man's cries that Xinyu should come to the Songhouse, otherwise their family would disappear. The conversation on this ended, and Jiang's family began to beg her to admit a mistake and apologize to save the family. The girl was very disappointing because of this attitude of her family, but she was forced to agree to go to the Sun family. Zhang Rui did not like the fact that her mother was forced to apologize to her offender. She felt that it was unfair. When Lin Feng and Xin were left alone, the girl asked her dad to tell mom what was better for him, but his father suggested taking him to the park so that he would punish the bad guys. Then the grandmother would stop scolding her mother, and this was Yuisin's main goal. Therefore, she was very happy about this. Father reminded his daughter that this would still remain their secret, and they prepared to save his mother. Meanwhile, Mr. Song stood over his son, who was tormented in pain, and reflected on further actions. His wife cried and lamented that they could not allow anyone to do this with the only heir to the Song family. The man was angry with female tears that did not help the matter in any way. Especially, he believed that the woman pushed their son. Mr. Song believed that the boy grew up with garbage, and because of one woman he spoiled the reputation of the family. Yan tried to convince his father that he was framed. The man from these words of his son was furious and believed that he was an idiot who wants to draw them into a hole. However, Mrs. Song believed that the son of rights and Shinhyu intended something or even aimed at their company. Mr. Song went to the window and said that her fears are groundless because the family of Jiang is miserable compared to him, and the man did not consider them dangerous, even if someone was standing behind them, but considered it necessary to interrogate Jinye. Sun Yan continued to insist that he was beaten by the cripple Lin Feng. So the Jiang family tuned everything. Mr. Song promised his son that as soon as they grabbed Feng Lin, he would tear off his arms and legs and make him feel eunuch. The conversation among the family members of Song was not completed when an outsider appeared in their house. Lin Feng appeared in the Song family's office. The overwhelming and pressing aura emanated from him. And the hero of the war was very interested in how many troubles were done by the family, that she decided to hire so many guard dogs. The mistress hid her husband, and the man asked who he was and why he granted their house. Sun Yan rose from the bed and shouted that this was the same Lin Feng who beat him. Mr. Song saw an arrogant guy who dared to break into their house and said that he could not occupy courage. The hero of the war threw one of the guards of the house at the owners of the house and asked if Senya should apologize to them. The guy looked at all the people in this room with neglect of his eyes and considered them not worthy of the apology of his wife. The eldest Mr. Song raised his hand and ordered his people to immediately grab the impudent. However, Lin Feng said with a satisfied smile that their people were not able to get up, but he could give them time to call others. Mr. Song was furious and promised that all this would not get away with such a little girl. He gave the guy the last chance to try to save his life. The great warrior Lin, such miserable threats only angered, and he asked the man if he was so confident in his words. In 1 second, the guy crossed the room and was behind a man who dared to threaten him. Lin Feng struck the head of the Sun family in the face and he fell to the floor. And the guy himself explained that everything would get away with him. Madame Song, in a panic, watched the beating of her husband. She even wanted to shout something to him, but she fell silent and covered her mouth with her hand. As soon as their uninvited guest looked in her direction, the man tried to get up from the floor while saying that he doesn't care who is behind the guy because he would kill everyone. Lin Feng, in the blink of an eye, faced Mr. Song and said that a man was the same ledge as his son. Sun Yan, in fear, watched his father's opponent and thought with horror that the guy did not look like a man. The aura of the demon emanated from him, which forced his whole body of his opponent to tremble with fear. The hero of the war raised Mr. Sun by the throat and, with a bored face, listened to other people's prayers for mercy. Mrs. Song joined these prayers, who rushed at Mr. Lin and promised to pay any amount. Sun Yan also realized that without his father, the company would end, so he began to beg him to let him go, promising no more to pester him to Senya. All their persuasion to solve the conflict sounded peacefully for Lin Feng, simply funny. But he threw the man aside. Mr. Song was on the floor and tried to clench his throat while his wife was worried nearby. The great warrior Lin gave their family one day to bring his sincere apology to Senya. Otherwise, their family will disappear, and also ordered anyone not to say that they saw him, because in this case they would die extremely painfully. Mr. Song listened to the conditions of the malts and felt a wave of anxiety from his last words. The door to the office slammed shut, and the Song family remained alone again. The head of the family still felt fear and anxiety when the lady said that Lin Feng left. The man felt humiliated and was not going to just let Malza go with it. These feelings evoked rage in him, and he wanted to find people as soon as possible and erase the Zhang family. Mr. Song got up from the floor and began to make all the necessary calls while his wife checked the corridor of their home. But instead of giving orders, the man was forced to hear that there was bad news for him. It turned out that all investors stopped cooperation with the company and the banks stopped issuing loans. The phone fell out of the hands of the director. The man did not understand how his company, having hundreds of millions, could go bankrupt in just one day. Sun Yan was wrapped in a blanket and tried to find out from his father what to do now. But the man was too absorbed in his thoughts about the origin of Lin Feng, since he was able to do this. The young Mr. Song also did not understand how this was possible, and said that he used to think that the Jiang family needed their money. The blanket was thrown off with Sun Yan, forcing the guy to cover himself with his hands and get scared of a sharp movement. Director Song hung over him and shouted that their corporations are the work of his life. So Yan would take money immediately and run to Signay. The young Mr. Song did not fully believe that his own father makes him apologize for his mistake. But the man was so furious that he began to shake the guy and scream that if a girl does not forgive him, then he will kill Yani. Lee Tsuin left her eldest daughter from home and ordered her to agree with all the requirements of the Song family, otherwise they can end. Jiang Xinhu did not feel the strength to argue with her mother, so she dutifully agreed with her. They went to the gate, while the woman wanted Xinyu to make a more friendly expression on her face. But they did not manage to leave the territory of the Jiang family, because the young master of the Song family sat right outside the gates. Li Tsuin tried to raise the guy from his knees and convinced him that it was their fault and should apologize to Xinyu. But the heir to the family, Song, threw back her hand from himself and began to scream that yesterday's situation was only his fault and begged him to forgive him. Since this was not enough, the guy began to actively call himself various curses and continue to pray for forgiveness. Tauke, the behavior of the young master greatly surprised the Jiang family, and they covered his mouths in surprise. Li Tsuin did not understand what caused this behavior of Mr. Sun, and Xinye felt that he was plotting something. The guy grabbed the girl's skirt and begged for forgiveness, promising that he would never have to pester her again. Jiang Xinhu felt disgust and said that she would forgive the guy only if he would never bother her again. With happiness, Sun Yan had tears, and he swore that he would not pester and would never even catch her eye. Such a reaction surprised the girl, but she was not going to find out what caused his words. In addition to verbal apologies, the guy gave a check of $1 million as moral compensation. Li Tsuin did not lose time and immediately took the check, rejoicing, on which Mr. Song, a polite man, the woman carefully examined the check, and Xinye decided not to continue her participation in this and said that she was leaving. Noticing that the heir to the family's son patiently waits for her order, the girl released him, and the guy hastened to hide from her eyes. Li Tsuin tried to find out from her daughter, who helped her cope with such an influential family. But the girl had no answers to her mother's questions. The woman thought and came to the conclusion that yesterday's savior, who was quite influential, helped them. Sun Yan ran away from the house of Jiang's family and hoped that now everything would be fine, and he corrected the situation. However, in the park, he stumbled upon Mr. Lin Feng and his little daughter. The man burned the heir's son with a formidable look. The young Mr. Song reported that Ms. Zhang had an apology and asked if there would be more orders, and the hero of the war hoped that they could no longer meet. The guy was about to leave when Lin Fan's voice made him stop. The man just wanted to remind you that if Yan tells others about him, then his whole family will be destroyed. Out of fear, Sun Yan fell to his knees, wet, and shouted that he would surely remain the secret of Mr. Linya. Mother Xinyu did not want to calm down and continued to insist that her daughter divorce the vegetable. She ate to manipulate a girl and crushed her to think about her feelings. Just at that time, the happy Yuisin returned home with his father and told her mother that they had returned. Jiang Xinye was surprised when she saw her daughter, and Xin said that she was taking her dad to warm up in the sun. The girl immediately began to hug her daughter. She praised the girl and told how smart he was. But grandmother Yusin did not support the joy of her daughter and made a neglect of their direction. The girl leaned toward her mother and whispered that dad figured out bad uncles. But this is only their secret. Jiang Xinye laughed with her daughter and reminded that tomorrow she needed to go to school and promised to take her on her own. Yuisin prepared to go to school and seemed to her dad before leaving the house to find out whether she looks good. Jiang Xinhu smiled while watching this, but she had to call Blue so as not to be late for the preparatory school. Lin Feng watched his family and felt happy when he participated in their life, even in this state. As soon as the girls left the room, the great called Xiao Qing, who, after a second, was already standing in front of him. The man asked the repair to take him out of the house and follow Blue to take her to school. Yuisin really wanted her parents to take her from school together, so Xinyu promised her a reward for good behavior. At the gates of the school stood the Jo family. The head of the father of the family was rewound, and the rest of the members smugly blocked the path. The eldest Zhang pressed her daughter to her and prepared to defend herself. She asked why they were standing here. The man pointed to his forehead and accused Lin Fan of his injury and promised that this time they would not leave so simply. The woman wanted to get 200,000 for moral damage and showed Xiaoch, who was so scared that he did not eat and lost weight over the past 2 days. Father Xiao Chu was not going to retreat when a vulnerable woman was standing in front of him and shouted that she offered a way out of the situation. Jiang Xinhu believed that her husband was slandered and warned that she would not allow them to live if Yusin was suffering. The man came close to the girl and began to shout that she could believe him or not, but he would kill her. Xin stepped forward and shouted at a bad uncle, reminding him that he should touch his mother, as his dad would come and beat him. Father Xiao again felt the frightening aura Lin Feng and decided that he did not want to contact him. Therefore, he took his family and ran away, although he promised that this was not the end of their showdown. His wife did not understand why they were running away if the man promised to cope with the disabled. But the head of the family had a bad foreboding. Xiaoqing asked if she should teach them, but the great said that she would still have a chance in the future. Zhang Xinhu leaned toward her daughter and explained what she needed in the company, so Xin should enter herself. Just at that moment, a director appeared next to the gates of the school who was glad to see the Zhang family. He went to the young mother and asked her not to rush because he needed to say something to her. Xin Yue greeted the director Yan and could not even imagine what questions could be for her. But the men were in no hurry to talk on the street and offered to go to the office and discuss everything there. The girl thought that this was somehow connected with his help when paperwork and followed him. In the office, Director Jan announced her that this year, Xin had an educational contract and we need to discuss plans for the next year. Zhang Xinhu did not understand how this could happen if they agreed for 2 years, and only 6 months passed. The director hesitated and began to talk about a limited number of places and the lack of armor. The girl reminded the man that she paid him 50,000 when they entered into an agreement. The man leaned back in his chair and explained that those 50,000 were an advance payment for admission. This greatly outraged Xinyu because she paid the money for the first year of study. But the director only laughed disgust. He decided that the young mother came to his trick and said that he could help them get a training place. There were 2 ways to get the help of the director Yana. First, he will pay him 1 million for the ransom of the place. And also do not forget that its commission will be added to this amount. The man understood that this option would not be suitable for the girl. Xinyu knew that she had that kind of money, but the check turned out to be with her mother, and she would not give it away. So she was ready to listen to the second option. Director Yang threw his legs on the table and said that he had heard about her husband's condition and hoped that he did not need to explain the details of the second method. Zhang Xinhu was furious from the words of the director. She slapped her hands on his table and called him disgusting. The director straightened his glasses and said that her daughter could not visit the preparatory school on her terms. But the girl was not going to lead to the suspicious schemes of this man, and she decided that she would give her daughter to another school. Before leaving, she noticed that such bastards were working at the Haitan school that her daughters are not here. Director Yang was angry, and after Xinyu said that none of the preparatory schools of the city would accept her daughter, he shouted that the girl would return tomorrow and would beg him to kneel to take the girl back. Xiaoqing told the great that in this school a good atmosphere, and the lady paid a lot of money to make their daughter succeed here. One attracted her attention and she called her master. The man turned towards leaving school and saw his wife, who ran away in tears. He immediately realized that in the director's office something went wrong and decided to go to look on his own. At this time, the Jo family appeared in the director's office. The father of the family greeted a man as an old acquaintance. Director Yang got nervous and pulled a smile on his face. He tried to pretend to be very glad to see this family, but in fact, the man simply did not want to spoil the relationship with someone who brings him a lot of money. Dalin complained about the contingent of the students. The man excitedly asked who Mr. Zhou was talking about and promised to immediately exclude her lousy. Dalin's wife said that she did on a disgusting vacation of the fox that recently left the office. Director Yang realized that we were talking about Lin Yusin and said that at the end of the semester she would no longer attend school. However, the Zhou family did not suit such a decision, and Dalin promised to pay another 1 million if the girl came out. Well, right now, the director promised to solve the problem as quickly as possible, and he was happy that he could so easily put together a condition. At that moment, the door to the director of the director opened with a loud clap, and the foot of Lin Feng appeared on the threshold. The Zhou the good family has lost its courage, but the director did not understand who he was dealing with and tried to show his power. Mr. Lin, with his appearance, made a married couple tremble with fear. Director Yang, however, did not pay attention to the changed atmosphere in the room, tried to find out how the man does here. Zhou Dalin received another very slap in the face, and his wife was sure that now they would die. The director began to get nervous but still tried to call an uninvited guest to order. He did not succeed, and he was really scared when Mr. Lin promised to cut his tongue out for another word. After that, the guy returned to the showdown with Dalun and asked why he stopped swearing so zealously. The hero of the war crushed the man's hands to the floor and informed him, if he dares to touch his wife, he can say goodbye to his own hands. Lin Feng also cast a meaningful look towards his mother Xiaoq, and she realized that this also concerns her. The woman knelt down and said that now they finally accepted their mistake. Mr. Lin agreed to release the Zhou family only if they leave the city today. Director Yang did not understand why this boy allows himself to do such things. But the marital time was in a hurry to leave. The hero of the war sat on the sofa and said that he gives the director the opportunity to explain why he sharpened his attention to his daughter. And only after these words the man realized that the man in his office was Yusin's father. However, Director Yang decided that he could threaten this person by the murder of his own daughter. The man was not going to let this guy intimidate himself and said that his daughter would leave in this institution only if his wife sleeps with him. Lin Feng felt fury begin to boil in his blood because of such impudence. Therefore, he immediately rose from the couch and hit the man with his foot, breaking his glasses. The hero of the war did not understand what a person like the Director Jan could count on. The man sat on the floor and held onto the cheek. His whole body trembled, and he could not believe that he had just been hit. Jan Tian took out the phone and shouted over his rage, which would make Lin Feng pay for the deed. But the man did not have time to call anyone, because another person burst into the office. The director rushed to him in the hope that he could help deal with the guy. But his boss's face expressed only rage when he shouted that since a man allows himself to use his power, he was not worthy to work in schools. Director Yang could not believe that this situation count him and threatened to dismiss him. The boss did not want to die because of the mistake of his subordinate and fired the director, and also ordered him to leave the city. Jan Tian felt broken and did not understand how the vegetable could be some kind of large bump because of which his life collapses. The boss pushed the former director and ordered him to immediately apologize to the master, otherwise he would pay blood. The boss also apologized to Mr. Lin and promised to immediately correct the current situation. However, this did not impress Lin Feng, since he himself was able to deal with his problems. The boss realized that the former director was still silent and said that he was not going to save him. Then Jan Tian began to actively apologize. The hero of the war leaned toward the man and said that he was very mistaken when he thought that with the help of wealth and power, he could manipulate people. Therefore, from this moment he will have neither money nor at home the only thing he can do to ask for alms. His boss agreed that this was a well-deserved punishment and promised Mr. Lina that his daughter would receive the best education. The man was very glad that the mayor managed to call in time, and he managed to save his life. Lin Feng decided not to intervene anymore and asked all those present to preserve his appearance secret. Men, of course, promised to be silent, but this incident made it clear that someone at the top already knows about his awakening. Jiang Xinhu walked in the park. I thought that today all the misfortunes fell on her head. Just at that moment, her younger sister appeared next to her, who asked if the girl was going to the company. Xin Yue shared her problem. It turned out that not one school did not want to accept Xin. The younger sister was sure that this was due to the lack of status and mentioned the heir to Song. But this led Xinya's rage. She moved away from her sister and said that from this day, they break all ties with this family. Then Xinya said that she had heard from her mother about her mysterious boyfriend and suggested asking for help from him. But the older sister said that she would not talk nonsense, and that person helped her out of pity. Jiang Xinya considered her sister stupid because she still holds on to the vegetables instead of finding someone influential. After their short conversation, the younger sister went to the store, leaving Xinyu to deal with problems. But before she had time to plunge into sad thoughts again, a call entered her phone. After Jiang Xinya said goodbye to her sister, she headed to the cafe nearby. There she met with Sun Yan. The girl saw his condition and decided that he was sick. Just looked so bad. The guy was angry and thought that he could recoup on his younger sister, since Mr. Lin looked after the elder. Xinya did not understand why the guy was angry with her, because she just wanted to remind that he should not lag behind if she wants to get her sister. Sun Yan smiled and said that the girl wants to bring him to the grave. The younger sister realized that a man had a decent competition and said that he considered him the best candidate. After these words, Sun Yan decided that he would recoup this girl in order to somehow tame his desire. The guy sincerely thanked her, but at the same time he looked very terrible. Therefore, Jiang Xinya decided that she no longer had to stay with him and hastened to leave. At this time, the heir's son took out the phone and watched after the leaving girl. He called his friends and said that there was a good job for them. Xinya walked along the street and thought that it was amazing how quickly the young heir to Song would surrender. The girl was very upset when she realized that she would not receive her bag in the near future. Two giggling guys passed next to her, on which the blonde did not pay much attention. The guys carefully watched the girl and thanked Sun Yani for a really good job. They were going to block the path and have fun, using Jiang Xinho. Soon they appeared in front of the girl, giggling disgustingly and asking if she was walking here alone. The younger Jiang was scared and could not understand that these two suspicious guys want her. The guy examined her body and laughed disgustingly, as they agreed that they wanted her body. Xiaoqing asked the Great if she had to save the girl, but he decided to teach the Blue a lesson for a start. The blonde was ready for anything for the sake of money, but nevertheless, she was the family of his wife. Meanwhile, the guys drove the girl into the lane, and she begged to let her go, promising to pay any money. But since Mr. Song already paid them for work, they did not want to lose such an amazing opportunity to have fun. Zhang Xinye heard a familiar name and did not understand why the one to whom she helped wants to harm her. The girl screamed attempts to escape, but the guys brought her loud cries only more pleasure. The blonde's sweater was torn, and the guys could see her bra. The girl cried and prayed for help. Just at that moment, Xiaoqing appeared behind the guys. She was a great warrior and was able to neutralize the largest guy with the help of one blow. And then, with the same ease to cut him out by a partner, Xinye sat on the floor, covered her breasts, after she looked at the girl she saved, and said that she would not be thanked. The savior ordered not to interfere in the affairs of the older sister. Otherwise, she will come not to help. After these words, the girl left the alley and left one blonde. Xinye was still crying and seriously thought about who was still worth the protection of her sister. Zhang Xinye covered her body and felt guilty because she made her sister spend time with Sun Yan. Xiaoqing was again next to the Great, and they hoped that the girl learned something. The subordinate reminded Lin Fan about the Binhai celebration and wanted to know whether the Great will appear on him. The hero of the war did not see the need to appear at this event, so he said that he would not go. The guard came to the heir to Sun and reported that his 2 people were killed. The guy was very surprised when he realized that both guys could not cope with the task and called them scraps. Sun Yan was not going to stop due to one failure and promised himself that the end of their family was just beginning. The guy came up with a great way to deal with Zhang and called his good friend Mr. Liu. A lot of time has passed since the attack on Zhang Xinhui. The time of the Binhai celebration was approaching, and Mr. Song again appeared in the house of Zhang. The man assured Xinye that he decided to completely compensate his misconduct and came only with good targets. Li Tsuyin did not notice a strange catch and joyfully supported other people's words about compensation for moral damage. Sun Yan pretended to feel obligated and asked if the girl knows about the triumph that will take place in 2 weeks. Mother Xinhu immediately caught fire, as this Binhai celebration was a very important event, and the woman hoped that they were being held for a holiday. However, it turned out that even the Sun family was not awarded to receive an invitation, not to mention anyone to hold someone. But instead of his family, Sun Yan proposed to introduce Xinyu with one of his influential friend. The wife of Lin Feng had no desire to listen further, so she got up from her seat and said that she was not interested. Li Tsuyin did not let her daughter leave. She grabbed Xinyu tightly by the hand and asked to take advantage of such a good opportunity. And while the woman was trying to convince her daughter, Sun Yan thought that he himself would go to the celebration if the girl agrees. The door to the hall opened and the baby Yuisin appeared on the threshold with the dad. The heir to the family Song did not expect this demon would return so soon, so he was very nervous. The guy to leave the girls and asked them, as soon as possible, to report on the decision of Xinyu. Li Tsuyin believed that agreeing to such an invitation was the duty of the eldest Zhang. Xinye descended into the hall, who, after a recent incident, was in no hurry to trust Sun Yan. She said this to her mother, but she became furious, because she was sure that the young master was set up. The younger Jiang did not argue, but doubts settled in her soul that the criminals attacked her because of Yan. Xinhu remembered that yesterday, her grandfather called her, who ordered the girl to come to the main house. Li Tsuyin was not very pleasing to this prospect, and she did not understand why the man needed her daughter. Zhang Xinhu did not know the details, but considered it necessary to go as soon as possible. The main house of Jiang's family was much larger than the suburban in which the Xinyu family lived. Grandfather sat at the head of the table and said in displeasure that their family did not receive an invitation to the celebration. The guy noticed that although their affairs improved this year, influential families still do not pay attention to them. The man glanced at Xinye and hinted that some could help them attract attention. The girl was very surprised when she realized that this part of her family wants active actions from her. Grandfather recalled that although he did not bother them these years, he always gave funds for their needs. Grandfather was not very worried about Xinyu in recent years, but always gave funds if necessary. The eldest Jiang was forced to admit that the head of the family was right, and one of her cousins snorted dismissively. The old man folded his hands in front of him and said that he needed a girl to provide him a service. Xinyu believed that grandfather was joking because she sincerely did not understand what she could do. The man who was the right hand of the old man, with neglect, asked if she really does not want to help the family. A cousin noticed that the girl pretends not to understand, and Sinua herself believed that she could not solve the problem that the chapter could not cope with. However, the old man explained that one influential person is interested in it who can help them get to the Binhai celebration. The eldest Jiang felt growing anxiety and said that no one could be interested in her because she already has a child. Her sister smiled sarcastically and added that the girl should thank them for the opportunity. Uncle Jiang also decided to play on this and convinced the girl that they were helping her. Jiang Xinhu was furious. The girl jumped up and told everyone that she is a married woman, not a toy, but her word did not produce the proper effect. An uncle decided that it was better to be a toy than to serve a vegetable. The eldest Jiang tried to protect the honor of her husband, but the cousin took advantage of the moment and turned the insult to her itself. Grandfather Jiang slapped the table and promised that if the granddaughter fulfills his request, then the family would never forget this. The blonde was not going to agree and was ready to go to the construction site to rearrange the bricks, but not to sell her body. She did not understand how to ask for something like that, but the old man was not going to accept the refusal. The cousin began to press the girl with the consequences of her actions and threaten losses. But Jiang Xinhue continued to stand her own and believed that only she had the right to decide what to do with her body. The sister laughed angrily when she agreed with this, but as if by chance she said that no one knows if nothing would happen to her family. The girl envied the beauty of Xinyu and hated her, so she joyfully enjoyed the opportunity to press the blonde to the table. Then she threw her to the floor. Yuyan shouted that this was her last chance to make the right decision and the life of her loved ones would depend on him. Although it was painful to admit Xinye that she was threatened by relatives, she agreed to act as principals for the sake of her daughter and her husband. The old man waved his hand in her direction and promised to keep her life to her family if the girl receives an invitation to the celebration. In upset feelings, the blonde left the main house of Jiang's family, hearing after that she would be called. Jiang Xinye returned home and immediately went to the park with her husband. The girl was considering today while swinging on a swing. She decided to tell her husband that her grandfather told about the interest of someone influential in her, and Xinyu was obliged to entertain him if she did not want to bring Feng and Blue to Lin. The girl sadly said that she would have to get an entrance ticket, because otherwise, they would kill her family. The blonde hugged her husband. She did not want to betray him, but Xinyu was not ready to lose them. She apologized to Lin Fan for the fact that only in this way could protect them from the family. The god of war became furious of such a treatment with his wife, and his hands lit up with blue fire. The man put his wife to sleep and put her in a chair. Lin Feng was about to get everyone who dared to intimidate the girl. The force overwhelmed the body of Mr. Lin, along with anger, and he called to him Xiaoqing. The subordinate instantly appeared nearby. She bowed to the great and was ready to fulfill any order. Lin Feng decided that he would no longer hide his awakening and ordered everyone to tell everyone about his presence at the Binhai celebration. Li Tsuin was confused when she saw her father in her house and did not understand why he came. The cousin of Xinye walked next to a beautiful young man whom she imagined as Mr. Liu. The guy sat next to Li Tsuin and began to correct his hair while the woman tried to understand what was happening. The old man ordered to bring Xinye down and not force such an influential person as Mr. Liu wait. The woman explained that her daughter led the child to school and still decided to ask why they appeared here. The cousin reported that Xinye liked this master, and if she did not bring problems, then the Zhang's family would not need anything. Li Tsuin shone with happiness, and the girl contemptuously told her that this is all thanks to her grandfather's efforts. Zhang's sisters took Yuisin to school, and now Xinye joyfully told everyone about their return. Mr. Liu began to consider the bodies of the girls and praised the choice of Sun Yan. The cheerfulness of the younger Zhang was decreased when she saw a grandfather who promised to leave them alone. The old man called Xinyu and introduced her to Mr. Liu, whom she had to accompany while Yuyan would take care of the child. The young man coughed and, anticipating their further meeting, said that he was glad to see Xinye. Mother brought her eldest daughter closer to the young master and ordered not to lose an excellent opportunity. Grandfather was dissatisfied with the behavior of her granddaughter because she did not welcome the guest, as it should. But Mr. Liu did not consider it something terrible, and added that constraint at the first meeting is completely normal. The guy decided to introduce himself first. Liu Jie began to say which company owns when the girl dismissively turned away. The old man restrained his last strength so as not to put the little rubbish in place. Mr. Liu did not like this attitude, and he asked if the Jin family really does not welcome him. Yuyan hit Xinye and shouted that she was just a bunch since such behavior allows herself. The girl towered above the blonde and extorted to immediately apologize to Mr. Liu. Yu Yan interrupted the guy and said that recently it became known about the presence of the Great Lin, and it became many times more difficult to get tickets. Jiang Xinye was sitting on the couch and covering the abrasion on her cheek, while Liu Ji threatened that with such an attitude they might not get an invitation. The blonde's cousin pressed herself against the master and assured him that his grandfather would decide everything. An ominous smile appeared on the young man's face, and he added that he would need another person. Mr. Liu looked at Xinho and said that the girl would also go with him. The younger Jiang did not really like this news. However, the old man only lit a cigarette and told the guy that he could take both sisters with him. Li Tsuin shouted at Xinhu, who did not want to go, and explained that her sister was to protect her from troubles. Mr. Liu pressed the bewildered girl to him and ordered the sisters to go with him. Liu Jai believed that the girls were only good for him to make him a company one evening and get their award. Jiang Xinhu did not want to participate in this, but the guy reminded her of the safety of her daughter and husband. Yu Yan was happy, looking at how the beauty of Sinua obeys the rules of the family and throws her principles. Lin Feng carefully watched this scene, hiding behind the wall of the staircase. And when the girls called the Coles, Xiaoqing called and canceled the invitation to the celebration for the Li family, and also ordered only Xinye ordered to invite. The younger sister Jiang tried to stay closer to Xinyu when they approached the gate. Mr. Liu was the first to leave Jiang's house, but Xiaoqing appeared in front of him and ordered him to stop. Liu Jai did not understand who the girl was, but after she stated that the guy could not take the mistress with him to the celebration, the subordinate line was seriously configured and told him either to fail or prepare for death. The young man lit up when he decided that the beauty in front of him was simply jealous and wants to get to the celebration. But his mood instantly fell when Xiaoqing reported that the invitation of the Li family was cancelled. Zhang Xin watched the girl and wondered who she was, since she constantly appeared next to them. Liuza did not believe that a family with a multi-billion-dollar condition could not be invited and decided that the girl in front of him was just an actress. Xiaoqing is tired of messing up with the unbroken heir to the Liu family, and she snorted from such ignorance. Zhang Xinhu removed her sister and asked her to leave here and would not get into conflict. The young man was not going to allow the sisters Zhang to leave and threatened to force Xinye to crawl in front of him on his knees. The subordinate of the great could not endure the insult of the mistress and gave him the strongest slap in the face. The guy fell to the ground and looked at Xiaoqing. He shouted that for such a misconduct, death was waiting for her. Naturally, the girl perfectly understood that his words were empty, and in order to stop someone else's stream of words, threatened to cut off her tongue. Old man Zhang appeared in the yard. He was angry because of the misconduct of Xinye, and believed that now they would not pay with his family Liu until the end of their life. Wife Lin Feng was confused when her grandfather accused her, because she did not affect the course of events. The man wanted to scream at her, but he was interrupted by Xiaoqing, who reminded that the Liu family would not attend the festival. In addition to this information, the girl conveyed to them that only Xinye was invited from the whole family of Jiang to the Binhai celebration. Of course, this surprised all those present, especially the eldest Jiang, who did not know the great line in order to receive such gifts from him. Xiaoqing bowed her head to the mistress and promised, "I will soon deliver an exclusive invitation about her." The old man did not believe the girl, because he did not think that exclusive invitations to people from the street were handed over to the celebration. Just at that moment, a stately man appeared near the gate, who said that he should deliver the invitation of Xinye. Now grandfather could not doubt other people's words, but it did not fit in his head, as they could invite a blonde. Mr. Liu rose from the ground and recognized Uncle Van in a man. The guy did not expect to see him here, but it was in his hand. Liu Jai told everyone that this person is the organizer of the celebration, and he will now prove that his family is invited. Uncle Van looked at the beaten man down and asked who he was at all and why he was pushing himself so much. Mr. Liu showed at himself and reminded that he was the heir to Liu's family, as well as he and his father Liu Wang drunk with them. The organizer of the celebration recalled that this year the Liu family could not be present because of the heir, and it was he who was now in front of him. Now the old man Jiang has received confirmation of the deprivation of the Li family to visit the celebration from the organizer himself, and was forced to accept this. Uncle Van asked his assistant to throw Liu Jia so that he would not bother the Lord with his presence. After that, the man smiled sweetly and reached out for the letter, in parallel, wondering who Zhang Xinye is here. The girl was very worried when she said that this man was looking for her, but Uncle Van bowed and provided an exclusive invitation from Mr. Lin, and asked them to be honored by his appearance at the festival. Jung Sin-hyu accepted the invitation and asked if Mr. Lin is the same person who rented a hotel on her birthday. The man confirmed that Great Lin was not the first time to make luxurious gifts for the lady. Jung Sin-hyu decided that she would marry her sister for the Great Linya would be an excellent outcome for their family. So she asked if they could meet him. Lin Feng watched the situations from the window in his bedroom and thought that his wife's younger sister had a really short memory. Uncle Van explained to the girl that the master is now a lot of important things to do, so there are no time for guests. And Xiao carefully looked at the blonde and reminded that she should not interfere. Sinya felt the seriousness of the words of a subordinate Great Lin and trembled with fear. And then she answered the girl slightly irritably that her sister would not abandon her vegetable in any case. The organizer of the holiday fulfilled his mission and now bowed to the mistress, hoping to meet her at the Binhai celebration. Xiaoqinga recalled that their duties are fulfilled and they can leave. Zhang's family was left alone. The old man went to his granddaughters and tried to understand who this man, who was at the birthday of Sinya, but the cousin pulled out a ticket from the girl and with mockery asked what method she used to conquer such a guy. Yuyan believed that if only one family representative could go to the celebration, then it would be her. Jiang Xinhu did not want to give in to her place because she really wanted to check whether that person is Lin Fan. But grandfather restrained her and recalled that the family could stop taking care of her husband and daughter. Xinyu did not understand why grandfather refers to Lin Fan, but as it turned out, the old man believed that now he became a burden of their family. The older sister Jiang was forced to come to terms and allowed to take away the invitation. If only they would not touch her family. Yuyan was satisfied with herself and thought that rubbish like Xinyu was unworthy of invitation. Lin Feng and his subordinate watched this. The girl really wanted to return and teach them a lesson. But the god of war forbade her to do this and promised that in the future he would force them to regret his existence. Just at that moment, the phone of Xiaoqing rang, and the school principal said that Yusin was sent to the hospital. The man heard that his daughter had lost consciousness and ordered his subordinate to start the car immediately. Pretty quickly, they arrived at the Binghai Central Hospital, where they brought the girl. Lin Yusin lay on the hospital bed unconscious, and the doctor carefully examined the results of the tests. Xiaoqing and the Great went into the ward and asked how the little princess feels. The doctor said that he excluded other options and found out that the girl had a relapse of the old disease. Lin Feng sat on the bed and asked if it would be possible to transplant the bone marrow in order to save her again. However, the doctor decided that for a start, he should invite Dr. Li in order to protect the mistress. The Great was very surprised when the doctor remembered Dr. Li. I could not believe that the man is now in the city. It turned out that the doctor returned immediately as soon as he heard a rumor about the awakening of the Great and now in the hospital. Lin Feng immediately sent his subordinate in search of the doctor and ordered to quickly bring him. Meanwhile, the doctor decided to ask if the man knows how serious the princess's illness was. The god of war was very wounded at that time and did not fully realize the state of sin. It turned out that 2 years ago the princess awakened the imperial and royal blood at the same time, and now her problems were caused by this. The man could not believe his ears. But Dr. Li appeared in the ward, who assured the Great to worry about anything, because the old man came to help the princess. The old man was so glad to see the Great line that tears appeared before his eyes. Such a reaction made men in the room feel awkward, and they silently looked at him. The god of war decided to return to the main conversation, as he was worried about the merger of blood in his daughter. Normally, royal imperial blood was not found in the human body at the same time, but there were 3 exceptions. Lin Feng knew that he himself was an exception, and there was also another guy in the capital. He was interested in who became the 3rd exception, which he had not heard of before. Dr. Li waited for a dramatic pause, and then with a surge of energy told that the 3rd exception was a little princess. Lin Yusin lay on the bed and began to spin uneasily. A doctor's aura flew around. The Great began to lose patience, so I decided that Xiaoqing would call the best option. The girl again ended up in the ward and almost imperceptibly moved behind the old man. The subordinate of the Great held her palm next to a strange neck and asked the master to explain herself more clearly. Now, a man could not tell theatrical and said that he was exploring the effect of imperial blood. Dr. Li believed that she should not affect the princess and asked if the Great One wanted to know why this is happening. Lin Feng was lost in conjectures where the imperial pedigree came from and allowed the girl to let the doctor go. The old man promised that if the little princess would be next to him, then no one would know and her imperial affiliation. Lin Feng hoped for this very much and decided to trust Dr. Li so far. Xiaohan recalled that the school also had to notify the incident of Xinyu, who would soon appear here. The Great realized that he had to leave and said that Dr. Lee knew how to explain the condition of Sin. Yuixin's mother ran around the corridors of the hospital as fast as she could. She was very nervous and did not even pay attention to Sun Yan and Liu Ji. Leaving the chamber, the heir Song became interested in a blonde, but his friend got angry because he did not want problems. Sun Yan received not a strong blow to the head from his friend and admitted that this time he had nothing to do with it. And then she sharply lit up him, and he guessed that the girl was worried about the child. Mr. Liu did not understand why they had this information, and then Song explained that Xinye will definitely need money for treatment. Liu Jize knew in what poor the Zhang family was in, and prepared to use his chance to make the blonde beg him. Zhang Xinhu burst into the ward and worried about what happened to her daughter. Dr. Lee asked a woman to be quieter so as not to wake up a little princess. The mistress did not expect to see the second person in the ward and asked who he was. Dr. Chen introduced his mentor and promised that Yusin was safe. Xinhua used to hear how Dr. Lee Sinsen is called ingenious. Dr. Lee Tsinfina believed that Madame Jiang just flats him and clicked his fingers. The little princess again began to turn in her bed and slowly recover. The old man called on needles and said that the girl will soon wake up thanks to acupuncture. Lin Yusin opened her eyes and tried to find Dad in the ward, because she was sure that she had heard his voice. Mom appeared next to her and said that she had lost consciousness at school and ended up in the hospital. And then she was lucky to meet the grandfather of the doctor who helped her wake up. Shin recognized a brilliant doctor in a man. The old man could not restrain his tender feelings and said that the baby was too kind to him. The man leaned toward the girl and began to hug her, and her hair made the child laugh. Zhang Xinhu worried that she could not pay for the doctor for the appointment because she understood that the family would not give her a dime. The man noticed her experiences and said that he would not take payment from her because he arrived on behalf of Mr. Linya. The little princess could now make sure that she did not feel, and she really heard her father's voice. The girl asked if the doctor could tell her who this master is and why he always helps her. The old man could not give her someone else's secret and limited himself to the fact that he is a great southern border, and the girl would recognize the details later. The doctor returned the girl to bed and handed her a business card to his mother, ordering to call if necessary. Now that Yuisin woke up and the man was convinced that he could say goodbye to her and leave the ward, the girl called her mother and admitted to her that Dad invited her grandfather, and she heard his voice while she slept. And although Zhang Xinhue did not believe her daughter's words, she decided to agree with her anyway. In fact, the girl really wanted the great Mr. Lin to be her husband. Since she never met with an unknown master, and Lin Fan's personality would explain a lot, the fact that the man did not tell her directly about the fact that he woke up was very worried about her. Lin Yusin noticed that her mother, something thought about something, and these thoughts greatly upset her, but the woman pretended not to bother her, winked at her daughter and asked if they would go home. Then, Dr. Chen intervened in their conversation. He said that a little princess should remain under surveillance for a few more days. Naturally, the girl was worried about the fact that he would have to leave Blue in the hospital, but her daughter looked enthusiastically and promised her mother that she could stay a little herself. Thus, the girl remained in the hospital and expect her recovery. The god of war was still in the hospital and asked his subordinate whether she found information on the head of the Zhang family. Xiaoqing did not lose time in vain and was able to find something strange in a short period of time. The girl reported that everyone in the family was ordinary people. But interest is the third child, Shanhai, who was the father of Xinyu. The guy remembered that he had met his wife's father and only once, and soon he died. The subordinate confirmed this information and said that she learned rumors who believed that the third son was not the heir. Lin Feng became interested in this information and realized that if this is true, then the status of his wife's father is in question. Dr. Li said that with the help of his position in society, he was able to find out that the emperor was fair. Haired heirs? This fact could mean that Father Smai was a descendant of the emperor. But it was definitely not possible to find out. The old man admitted that he has requests. Firstly, he wanted to accept the princess to the princess. Lin Feng allowed the man to teach the girl to control his abilities and asked what else he needed. It turned out that he wanted to visit the celebration, since there were no more 5 representatives of Imperial blood and 12 royal. Xinyu had had no choice and she had to leave her daughter in the hospital and ask her to obey Dr. Chan. Zhang Xinhu promised Lin Yusin that she would definitely come to her after work. Mom stroked her little princess on the head when she assured that everything would be fine with her. The girl asked Dr. Chan to take care of the girl and with a calm soul left the ward. But before she had time to leave the hospital, Zhang Yuyan called. The blonde did not understand what she could still need, but I still had to answer the call. Then she heard how she was ordered to be in the company in half an hour. The mistress went to the office, and when she approached the financial department, he heard loud cries. Inside stood Yuyan with a glass of coffee. She screamed furiously at the employees, asking what they were doing here. The blonde did not want to see her cousin, but she needed to find out what kind of business they were looking for. The girl turned on Sinyu and was surprised that she was asking such stupid questions. Her cousin was the manager of the financial department and was absent at work when the company was in a crisis state. Yuyan threw coffee in Xenia, but the lady managed to dodge and recalled that she had taken time today. The girl did not believe in this and promised to subtract for absenteeism a salary in half a month, and next time to completely throw her out. This state of affairs did not suit the blonde, and she tried to reason his sister. However, this was useless because the girl believed that their company was in a crisis because of such as Xinye. The blonde did not think that the crisis lies on her shoulders and reminded that all accounts pass through a cousin. Zhang Yuyan noticed an impudent accusation and ordered the company to get out of the crisis within 3 days. Otherwise, it would be fired. 3 days in order to get the company out of this position was very small, and the blonde decided that her boss was joking. However, this was not so, and the cousin repeated after the departing manager that she would fire her in case of failure. Zhang Yuyan was pretty herself and believed that the girl could never cope with this. Then she returned back to her office. After such stormy showdowns, she wanted to boast of this. In the office, Mr. Song, as well as Mr. Liu, who were already tired of waiting. The girl promised that there would be no problems with Xenia, and Liu Ji was already looking forward to how she would get an advantage over the mistress. The only heir to the family son smiled happily and was sure that this time they would succeed. But his friend was in no hurry to relax, because he remembered that this was not their first plan. The guy did not want to anger Liu Ji, and said that he had already come up with a backup plan in any case. Sun Yan questioned the words of Zhang Yuyan, and this made her be worried. The cousin of Sinyue tried to flirtly wink around the guys and promised that she would not tell anyone. The girl believed that she got only the best qualities of the family, but the men thought that genetics was not fair to her. Liu Ji wanted to know his friend. What was his backup plan in order to be prepared for everything? And the only heir song hinted that in the life of the blonde, there are 2 important people for her and 1 very small. Lin Feng came to the ward to his daughter and asked him to agree whether the girl to become a student of Dr. Li. The little princess became interested and clarified whether a man would teach her how to treat people. The god of war with adoration looked at his daughter and wanted to tell how Sinsena would teach her. But he did not have time to finish, because Xiaoqing appeared behind him and reported on the problems of Xinye in the company. Jiang's family was going to confiscate the house to compensate for losses, and Mr. Lin asked if someone was worth it. The subordinate reported that several people saw Liu Jie and Sun Yani in the office of the director of the financial department. The baby was scared for her mother, but her father convinced her that he himself to take care of the problems, and her daughter should recover. Xiaoqing expected orders of her master and specified whether she should bring those too. The god of war decided that they would deal with them when the time came. But for now, they take care of Zhang Xinhui. The wife of the god of war was sitting in her office for hours and could not come up with a way out of this situation. It turned out that all the partners of Jiang's company recalled their investments, and even the bank refused a loan. The girl was very worried because only 1 day remained to solve the problem, and the deficit was tens of millions. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the opening doors, and someone went into the blue office without a knock. This man turned out to be Song Yan, who followed the plan and came to the mistress in a difficult moment for her. The guy behaved relaxedly and told the girl that he came to earnestly help her out and repay her for his actions again. Zhang Xinhu got up from the table and did not plan to accept help from Yan, so she asked him to leave. The man pressed the girl, recalling that her family would be left without a house. But even this did not convince a blonde. The guy said that he, as a member of the Song family, always helps others and decided not to annoy the girl further. Therefore, Sun Yan headed for the exit and said goodbye that his offer would act until 9 in the morning, and if she changes his mind, let him come to the hotel. Zhang Xinhu was angry with such a behavior and shouted that she would never make a deal with such an unscrupulous person. The guy did not argue, but only said that he would wait for her tomorrow in the appointed place. This situation showed the blonde that Jiang Yuyan supported Sun Yan and intended her. All debt receipts of the company were sent to Zhang's country house, and they have accumulated a whole stack. Li Tsuen did not understand why they come to them, and decided to ask her daughter if she knew. Now the eldest Jiang had no choice, and she said that Yu Yan was going to confiscate their house. The woman was furious from this news. She was angry that problems are constantly piled on their family. The woman believed that her daughter could ask Mr. Linya to help them, and for him this will not become a problem. But the girl upset her when she admitted that after her birthday she had never seen him, and she had no contacts. Of course, Lee Tsuen, as always, began to blame her daughter for all problems from the family. And Sinya believed her words. She did not want to bring her loved ones, and since the Van family did not answer her letter, the girl had to go to Sunyan. Morning came, and the time for the appointed meeting came. Zhang Xinhui came to the hotel and saw the right room. She went in and immediately shouted to Sun Yanu that she came. But near the window there was not at all an unscrupulous man. However, the girl looked at her feet, so she did not notice it. She was ready for anything, but at first she wanted to see the money. Uncle Van turned away from the window and kindly greeted Madame the Great Lin. The girl saw Van Zheng and concluded that his family conspired with the Song family to destroy their company. The man went to the blonde and explained that this was a misunderstanding. He said that he simply did not have time to answer the request for cooperation and handed the check. Sinyu was at a loss, but Uncle Van said that Mr. Lin would take care of the villain. The girl did not threaten the girl, and she became interested in whether Mr. Lin asked her to help her. Van Zheng admitted that it was, but assured that for him this is not a problem, and he would solve everything that bothers their company. Zhang Xinhu was beside herself with happiness. She was sincerely grateful to the man who saved her in this situation. Uncle Van left the room, leaving the girl inside, and instantly became serious. He met with the great and reported that the problem of his wife was settled. Now Lin Feng was going to punish the offender. The god of war was going to teach how to teach the one who offends his wife. In another issue, Liu Ji was sitting, who was angry due to the fact that the bastard still did not come to him. The guy was very angry when he had to wait, but admitted that Jiang Xinye was a strong nut. Mr. Liu rang the phone, and the name of his partner, Song Yan, was displayed on the screen. Liu Ji picked up the phone and ordered to tie a small rubbish. He knew that Mr. Ben could abduct anyone. Finally, the rooms knocked on the door, and Mr. Liu was delighted that Sinyu had still come. The guy threw the phone and ran to the door to put the blonde inward, even though she made him wait. However, in the doorway, he saw the wrong girl that he expected to see. There was Xiao Qing, who with great force hit the impudent with her foot in the face. Liu Jai flew back and hit the table, knocking off the dishes from him. The girl broke the guy's lip with her blow. Mr. Liu did not understand why this strange girl stuck to him and constantly appears next to him. The subordinate of the great did not answer him. She turned back to the corridor and called Lin Feng. Liu Za looked at the incoming one and was surprised, because the guy seemed very familiar to him. Sinyu's husband said that he served in the army for many years and became known as the Great Southern Territories. Liu Za felt his body constrained with fear of this man, and he was interested in why the great helps the blonde. Lin Feng explained to Liu Jai that who he calls him a bastard was his wife and pressed the guy to the floor. Mr. Liu did not believe that the disabled person could turn out to be the Great Southern Territories. Around the guy's mouth, there were spray of blood. The god of war radiated a powerful aura and said that he still believes him whether the guy believes him. The man leaned toward Liu Ji and took him by the collar of the t-shirt, lifting the guy into the air. Lin Feng believed that the most important thing now was to force the guy to pay for the humiliation of Jinye. Mr. Liu did not believe that the god of war would dare to do something with him because he is the only heir to the Li family. But despite this, he flew into the wall with great force. The guy was very wounded. Now he did not doubt a strange rank and begged him to forgive him, promising to pay any money. Lin Feng looked perplexedly at the heir to Liu's family and asked if he looked like someone who needs money. Xiao Qing, with a satisfied smile, watched how her master makes the guy feel the consequences of his actions. Liu Jai had a hand broken, and the rest of the body trembled. The man said that this is only a warning. The god of war wanted the beaten guy to understand that the next time he would not have mercy on, and he himself would want to die. Lin Feng was about to leave and, as always, advised not to spread about his personality. They walked along the corridor of the hotel when Xiao Qing asked if the Great Revenge was afraid. But Lin was not going to beware of civilian. The Great Southern Territories promised his subordinate that if the heads of the province want to strike, then they would die. The girl rang the phone, and she was distracted from the conversation to find out why she was worried. Xiao Qing was very frightened when Dr. Chen An said that the little princess was abducted and her whereabouts are unknown. Lin Feng also knocked out this news from balance, and they hurried to the hospital while protecting Sinyui from these news. For record terms, they ended up in the ward, Doctor. Chen stood there, and the god of war wanted to know when his daughter disappeared. The man was excited and said that he brought her breakfast and went to prepare for physiotherapy. But when he returned, the princess was gone. The great southern territories hated himself for not being able to prevent the abduction of his daughter. Anger overwhelmed his body, and in order to free himself from emotions, Lin Feng destroyed the floor in the ward with one blow. Chenan fell to his knees and admitted that it was all his fault, and he had to better take care of the little princess. But the god of war said that he would not blame him for the abduction, since he was a doctor performed his duties. These words made Chen Anya be confused. The man ordered Xiaoqing to immediately go to the control and observation point and find the kidnapper. The guard was sitting in a small room and was passionate about the game. He was sure that he had to win. Just at that moment, Xiaoqing appeared behind him, who distracted the guard from the game. The girl reported the patient's loss and asked to give her records from the cameras. However, the man demanded more detailed information about the missing. The subordinate line clarified that the patient was a child, and she disappeared about an hour ago and ceased to Yuisen's family. The guard irritatedly turned to Xiaoqing and said that only an hour had passed and first you need to search the hospital. The man continued to play and was not going to start searches until they passed for a day and the police should come to him. A ray of energy knocked out the phone out of the guard's hands, strongly scaring an adult man. Lin Feng was not going to waste time in an empty one, so he was going to do everything that would be needed to get a record. The guard got angry and shouted at the uninvited guests. He cannot provide them with entries. Besides, the entrance of strangers was prohibited to this place. The god of war released his frightening aura, showing a man that it was better for him not to angry Feng Lin. Xiaoqing saw that the great had lost his temper and was afraid that the guard would be killed without further ado. The girl hastened to stop her master and decided to present a coupon that they were members of the Imperial family. The guard was speechless when he saw purple gold, which represented the Imperial family and was a symbol of the highest power. Xiaoqing strongly recommended to hurry and provide them with a record and saw that Lin Feng began to calm down. The man went to the computer and quickly began to look for records over the past hour or so. Finally, they found the moment at which it was clearly visible how Lin Yusen was sleeping in his ward. The god of war carefully looked at the record and asked to increase the lower panel. The record showed that a man in a white robe raised a sleeping girl from a bunk and carried away in an unknown direction. The guard peered into the silhouette of the kidnapper and realized that he seemed to him some familiar. Lin Feng heard this, and the man reported that this man looks like the internship of their hospitals, whose name was Zhao Gan. Xiaoqing got to find where to be the internet, but it was not on other cameras. Then the guard recalled that Ghana was not accepted very well, and 2 days ago the guy came to him and asked about the work of the point. Such a turn of events significantly complicated the situation, and Lin Feng again began to lose control of himself. The great southern territories kept himself in his hands with all his strength, and gave Xiaoqing only 5 minutes in search of Zhao Gan. The girl did not argue about the temporary framework and immediately evaporated from the office to fulfill the order. The guard felt a pressing atmosphere and began to worry that he did something wrong. To feel the gloomy mood of Lin Feng could be at a great distance, so the guard preferred not to climb. The god of war sat on a man's chair and he tried to understand whether the members of the Imperial family should be so frightening. Xiaoqing was able to complete the task, and a few minutes later, the internet Zhao Gan was taken to the office. She threw him to Mr. Linya at her feet and reported that her people found him in the hospital and immediately grabbed him. The internet snapped because he believed that the doctor could go to the hospital and threatened to call the police. The foot of the fan Lin was on a strange shoulder, and without a preface, he demanded to tell where the guy took the child. Zhao Gan wanted to shake someone else's leg and stubbornly pretended that he did not understand what kind of child was talking about. The great southern territories did not have time to play other people's games, and the man was angry that they were trying to deceive him. Therefore, his leg began to put pressure on the shoulder of the kidnapper with such force that the floor under his arms began to crack. Lin Feng pressed until Zhao Gan's right hand was completely pressed on the floor. Xiaoqing and the guard watched interrogation. The man was very nervous from the cruelty of the great. Nevertheless, the kidnapper could not stand the torture and said that he was hired, and his boss would not forgive Gan's death. The god of war was glad to hear such a statement, because now he could give himself an occasion to stop trying to control himself. Lin Feng rose from his seat and threw back the interns a few meters back with one blow, and at least at first glance the blow did not look strong. After him, Zhao Gan coughed with blood. The great did not let the guy catch his breath and stepped on his chest. The man admitted that no one threatened him so long ago. The man made a little effort and crushed the kidnapper to the floor with the help of his leg. Zhao Gan tried to take advantage of the moment and pretend that he had lost consciousness. But Xiaoqing instantly pulled him out and asked Mr. Lin to bring the guy to his feelings and make him speak. Lin Feng said that he was not going to waste time on such things, and once Gan refuses to speak, which means that they will just kill him. The young doctor realized that he had only one chance to survive, so he promised to tell them everything. The Great Southern Territories showed the guy all his strength and ordered to immediately tell where he took Yuixin. Zhao Gan could hardly speak, but told that the girl put in the car of Mr. Suna and he took her to his home. Lin Feng was not very surprised when he heard this name, but now he was sure that the heir to the Song family would die. It turned out that the guy arranged Ghana in the hospital and threatened him to achieve assistance in abduction. The internet hoped that he would be released, but Lin Feng believed that the guy made a terrible mistake and to atone for even death enough. The god of war asked Xiao Qing to find someone who would deal with the body of the kidnapper and then follow him into the Song house. There was a wonderful sunny day outside, and in the Song family estate it was calm, despite the abducted child. Lin Yuyan was tied to a chair. The girl screamed that a bad uncle would let her go, and she was sure that the police would detain the man. However, Sun Yan laughed at this, because without evidence, no one would dare to break into the house of his influential family. Mr. Song was a disgusting person, and in his actions, he blamed the ungrateful Jiang Xinhue. The man believed that he should repay the girl for undermining his health. Yan pulled the baby by the cheeks and enjoyed her helplessness. Lin Yusin believed that a man in front of her is a very bad person, and her mother never did anything bad. The little princess continued to resist, because she was sure that dad would appear soon and would save her. Sun Yan clicked the girl on the forehead due to the fact that she dared to mention Lin Feng. This garbage was the cause of his suffering. From unpleasant sensations and her own helplessness, the baby began to cry loudly. Suddenly there was a sound of broken glass, and behind the kidnapper the father of a little princess appeared. Sun Yan at the same second received in the face, the glasses of Mr. Suna crashed, and the guy fell to the floor. The girl saw her father and tears immediately stopped pouring from her eyes. Yuixin was happy to see her hero. Lin Feng went to Xin and began to unscrew her from the chair, promising the baby that now everything would be fine. The girl told dad that she was waiting for him, and the man began to carefully examine his daughter in search of injuries. It turned out that the god of war was a little late and the bad uncle managed to hit the princess in the forehead. But as soon as his father came, the pain left. Lin Feng raised Yuixin in his arms and asked if she was ready to teach the bad uncles. Xin was ready and asked dad to take revenge on his mother. Sun Yan trembled when the girl told her father that she did not remember what hand her uncle hit her, but it was very painful. The heir to the family's Song decided to take advantage of the moment and try to run out into the street. He was worried, as the great found him so quickly. The god of war carefully listened to the story of his princess and made his conclusions from him. Yan was already near the exit and believed that he would be saved as soon as he ran out into the street, because he would not be touched by everyone. But the guy did not take into account the fact that Lin Feng was considered the god of war, and his speed was struck by the consciousness of ordinary people. That is why the escape of the heir to the family Song failed. And now, he will have to accept the punishment. Lin Feng looked at the frightened kidnapper and said that he did not remember to allow him to leave. With every second, Sun Yan was aware of the severity of his misconduct, and he was covered by animal horror. The guy decided to try to fight back and aimed at the hand with which the Great Southern Territories held his daughter. The heir to the family, Song fled as quickly as he could and called for help, hoping that his parents would save him. Naturally, he couldn't run far away because Lin Feng firmly held the guy by the hand. With one clever movement, the Great twisted someone else's hand, forcing Sun Yan to scream in pain. The little princess covered her ears and complained to her dad that this man was too noisy. Dad promised Yusin that now a bad uncle would silence, and a blue flame appeared in his left hand. This fire was directed by the heir to the Song family, and he shouted even louder, forcing the baby to close his eyes. Yan's eyes closed, and instead of screams from his mouth, barely audible wheezing burst from his mouth when he fell to the ground. Lin Feng heard the scream of the head of the family. The man burst into the room and begged to spare his son. Mr. Song was confused. He looked at the condition of his child in shock and understood that everything was very bad. Sun Yan leaned toward the wall. His chest was burnt, his whole body was covered with bruises, and his eyes rolled up. His father fell to his knees in front of the war of God and begged to suck and forgive Yan's stupid mistake. Lin Feng did not touch other people's words at all, because someone else's son did not spare his princess until he appeared. The head of the family Song understood that they were in a disadvantage when something flashed past him. The next instant, Xiao Qing appeared in the room. She reported to the Great that everything was allowed in the hospital. The baby was frightened of such a sharp appearance. But Dad explained that this aunt is his friend, and there is no need to be afraid of her. Lin Feng was going to give the girl his daughter and finish with bad uncles alone. Yan's father could not cope with his fear. Lin Yusin held onto the shoulders of Xiao Qing and, goodbye, wished her dad successfully avenge their family. When the baby left the room, the great southern territories could show all its power, and he reminded the family song that he had already shown kindness once. The head of the family tried to take the blame on himself and hoped to convince Lin Feng to inflict any injuries, but save his life. The god of war reminded the man that he had no right to exhibit the conditions and hung over Sun Yan, who tried to crawl back. But this time, the Song family pleas were useless, and the great southern territories committed one blow with the guy. The head of the family's Song could not do anything, and he had to observe the death of his own son. It was all over when Lin Feng said that it was too late to pray for mercy, and he did not give the second chance to anyone. The Great took advantage of his speed and approached the father of Yan, who was still in a state of shock. Then the guy took the man's head and said that his family was better off leaving the city within one day, because if they decide not to do this, then the head of the Sun family will become the following. The head of the family, Song, lay on the floor next to his son's body and sighed heavily. He understood that if he did not want to go to the next world, he must agree with Mr. Lin and leave the city. After all these events, it is time to see what is happening on the estate of the Li family. There was not a single whole place left on the body of Liu Jie, and he reflected on the connection of Xinye and the great Lin. Father burst into the guy's room. The man was furious and wanted to find out who dared to beat his son. Father promised to break the culprit to pieces, and Liu Za already wanted to, as always, complain to Dad. But he sharply remembered that if he dares to reveal the personality of Lin Feng, then the man would destroy the whole genus Liu. Therefore, for the sake of the well-being of the family, the guy had to shut up. He became apathetic and admitted that he could not tell. Now the head of the family of Liu was also angry with his son and gave him a strong slap in the face, so that the guy remembers that they own the city. Liu Jai thought about whether the Zhou family had more than the great, and he decided to leave the personality of Lin Feng a secret. Father considered his son a weakness, but his story was not necessary, since the man had already hired the investigator. This man just appeared next to them and reported that he managed to find out the culprit's connection with his family Jiang. It was only a clue, but Men was ready to destroy the whole family of Jiang in one fell swoop without going into details. The head of the family, Liu, noticed that the investigator did not leave and suggested that he had some other news. He was right, because the old man spoke about the murder of Sun Yan, and he added that the killer is the same person who beat Mr. Liu. Horror ran through the body of Liu Ji like an impulse of the current, and he was seriously worried that he would die the next. The guy's father considered the family to be losers, since they could not cope with the Jiang family. The man was completely absorbed in the desire of revenge, and came up with how he would turn out with Zhang's family at the Binhai celebration. The evening came, and the time came when Zhang Xinhui had to take his daughter from the hospital. The girl went to the ward and brought the cake for discharge. The woman asked how Blue feels, but to her horror, Lin Yusin was absent in the ward. Mrs. Jiang called her daughter in despair. There was no answer, and Xinya covered the horror of the assumptions that something had happened to Yusin. The cake fell out of the weakened hands, but the next second the girl heard the voice of her daughter. Zhang Xinhu forgot about everything in the world and rushed to the girl, asking her about well-being. Lin Yusin felt guilty before his mother, so she lied that Dad took her to play. Madame Zhang asked the baby not to play with strangers and admitted that Xin scared her a lot. Jiang Xinye strained words about the fact that Lin Feng took the girl to play, but he was at home all this time. Shouting with emotion watched how the baby discovers a spoiled cake, and noticed that his wife Linya appreciates the girl's life above her. Lin Feng stood nearby, and in a frustrated voice admitted that the girl was really a good mother. But the great southern territories were very upset by the fact that he owed too much to her. Mr. Lin recalled that it was time for them to go, because none of the Imperial family Lin was left to the celebration of people, and they had to prepare. In his last battle, the man was ready to fight to the last sigh for the peace of the family. The guy was sitting in his pool and calmly drank wine. He looked at the spear of thunder and thought about something of his own. The man turned to his subordinate and asked if it was true that the great Lin was awakened. The servant confirmed that such rumors go, and information also appeared that one of the families was already expelled by him. The Lord of the Dragon believed that this was just a show to show his importance, but in reality his family had already lost his power. The subordinate was sure that Lin Feng was a threat to the Emperor, and offered to get rid of him. His Excellency got angry with the servant and, without leaving the pool, directed his energy in his direction. The guy threw back, and the Lord of the Dragons said that he did not remember to give a similar order. The servant crashed into a column, but insisted that it was dangerous for His Majesty to leave a god of war alive. The Lord of the Dragon believed that Lin Feng could be useful because he had a good reputation among people. However, His Majesty considered that the great should point out his place, and he said about this to the servant. The subordinate listened to the words of the Lord of the Dragons and promised him to settle everything. The man went to the center of the pool and held out his hand to the spear, which was not like human. The spear of thunder refused to obey, and red lightning began to appear along its length. His Majesty was forced to release the spear of Gomgod because it rejected him. Lightning spears greatly wounded the man's hand, and he was darkened. The Lord of the Dragon came up with a brilliant solution to the problem. His Majesty decided that since Lin Feng did not die, then the Emperor would arrange his reception. On an unusual hand, the men appeared and concentrated power began to appear in the palm of his hand. The Emperor decided that since he could not use the artifact, he would simply destroy him so that he would not go to Lin Feng. Lightning from the power of the Lord of the Dragons and the lightning of the very spear of the god Thunder lit everything around under the crazy laughter of a man. In Zheng's suburban house, all family members lived as an ordinary life and calmly spent the evening. Suddenly, Lin Feng felt something strange and was surprised to realize that the spear of the god of thunder was destroyed. Xiaoqing noticed an unexpected and cutting change in the face of the great and asked what had happened. Mr. Lin asked where his spear, and after he found out that it was at the Imperial family that he was destroyed a couple of minutes ago, the girl noticed that such an artifact is very difficult to destroy, and the great realized that this was a warning. In addition, he knew who could destroy the spear and was not going to miss the celebration and further to endure the humiliation of his family because of this. Lin Feng sat in a wheelchair and promised Xiaoqing that he would gather bit by bit what was taken from him. Near the country house of the Zhang family, a man dressed in all black appeared. He quickly approached the windows, and when he noticed the bedroom, Lin Feng took aim and threw the blade in the great southern territories. The window next to Xiaoqing broke and flew past her, something at great speed. The girl realized that a hired killer came to them. Mr. Lin managed to tilt his head and caught the blade of a gold blade, remaining unharmed. The subordinate shouted to the great that she was right now in pursuit of a hired killer, and Lin himself. Feng frowned and carefully examined the dragon dagger in his hands. Li Tsuyin and Xinye sat in the living room when the blondes heard some strange sounds and tried to understand where they were. Suddenly, the light in the room went out, and the girls sat in complete darkness and looked around in fright. Lin Feng was extremely alert when he realized that an outsider had made his way into the house. Zhang Xinye screamed when in the darkness the guy's silhouette was able to consider in front of her. The girl tried to find out from the stranger who he was and how he got into her house, but the criminal was silent. This man was in a mask and carefully looked at the blondes. He said that they will pay with life for covering the wrong person. A small purple ball began to form in the criminal's hand, and he prepared to attack the girls. Li Sweeney did not want to die. It is not clear why she proposed to give the man all the money they had. The guy in a mask invited the woman to take her money to the grave with her and was going to hit them on top. Xinye hugged her mother, who also trembled with fear, and they wailed that they did not want to die. Several painful seconds passed when the girls realized that they could still breathe. They looked timidly in front of them and saw a man who held the criminal's hand. Lin Feng condemned the guy's actions and turned out a little hand. The great did not understand why to attack defenseless girls. Mr. Lin was about to protect his family Jiang, even despite the fact that he did not really like them. Blue lightning appeared in his hand. The offender had another free hand, and he concentrated his strength in his fist. Men attacked each other at the same time, and everyone was able to beat off someone else's blow. The mercenary laughed and prepared to hit again. The man had fun that Lin Feng was weak. They continued to fight, and soon in the hand of a guy with a mask, a knife appeared. The mercenary heard that the door to the house would open now and asked Lin Feng was his family. The man instantly reacted. Therefore, when Zhang Xigna and Yuixin went into the house in the living room, they were no longer. In the room, there were only frightened girls to terrible. And Xinye excitedly asked if her sister returned. The eldest Jiang was surprised that they were sitting in the dark and went to the switch to light the light. When the room was lit by Madame Jiang, she saw the terrible consequences of the battle, and in horror, asked what happened. While their mother came to, Xinye said that they were attacked by a mask, but someone managed to save them. The younger Jiang remembered that their savior was like Mr. Linya, who was at her birthday. The little princess began to run inside the house and scream that her father had saved the family. Grandmother felt disgust, watching how a trifle runs to the garbage as soon as she returns. Lin Feng figured out the criminal and now returned to look at the golden dagger. Xiao Qing appeared in the window, who regretfully reported that she could not cope with the task and the mercenary left. The great said that it is not important now, and he asked to look at the dagger in his hands. And then the subordinate recognized the dragon dagger, with which the Lord of the Dragon awarded his servants. In addition, the Binghai celebration was transferred to tomorrow, which confirmed their guesses. The great asked Xiao Qing to go to Vanzheng and say that his family would be responsible for Xin Yu's safety tomorrow. Based on the actions of Shen Yan, one could understand that he wanted Lin Feng to disappear. The door to the bedroom opened with a roar, and a happy daughter ran to the man, tearing him out of heavy thoughts. The baby was sure that it was Dad who saved Aunt and Grandmother, so her father praised her for quick wits. Lin Feng took the girl in his arms and asked how she would react if her dad was not quite a hero. The little princess smiled at her father and admitted that until he defends her and mother, he will always be a hero. Jiang Xinhu caught up with her daughter and entered the bedroom, and then asked Jin not to bother Dad. The girl took the baby in her arms, and they agreed that they would allow Dad to relax a little more. Xinye is not a mole to wait for the awakening of Lin Feng. The mistress did not yet have time to leave the room, as someone called her. The wife of Lena heard Mr. Van's voice and asked what had happened to him. The man reported that the celebration was being deposited, and tomorrow someone will take it. Xinye was surprised and admitted that she no longer has an invitation. Van Zheng assured that the invitation is just a cardboard and mistress is a respected guest. The girl was delighted with this news and said that she was very glad to hear it, and also apologized for inconvenience. Jiang Xinye stroked the baby on the head and asked her to look after her dad tomorrow evening. Lin Yusen was only glad to stay with her father, and admitted that she was not afraid of anything next to him. The evening of the Binhai celebration came. The vast territory was decorated simply luxuriously. Li Tsuyin did not understand why her daughter was so frustrated when she managed to get to such an event. It turned out that Xinyu was worried about her family, especially after they attacked their house. The woman rudely said that her too garbage is not tedious to anyone, and now she should concentrate and find a man for marriage. The girls turned their heads, and Xinye saw that next to them was grandfather and Jiang Yuyan. The younger Jiang held on to her mother and admitted that such behavior of a cousin was outraged by her. Jiang Yuyan also noticed relatives and asked how they got here without an invitation. Xinye flared up and screamed that they were honored guests, and Mr. Van personally brought them to the celebration. The guy next to Yuyan was surprised at the other members of her family, while the girl tried to expose herself in the best light. She took out an invitation and, reveling in her superiority, began to send Jiang Xinye home. Jiang's younger sister pointed to Yuyan and recalled that this invitation belongs to her sister, so she had to return him. Then the girl said that Xinhui is not treated with Jiang's family, and only a worthy representative receives an invitation. The guy nearby finally drew attention to the invitation, and almost choked when he saw that it was purple gold. These colors were a symbol of the Imperial family, and this invitation confirmed rumors about the approximation of Jiang's family to the Van family and the great lineage. Another man appeared next to Jiang Yuyan. He took the invitation and mocked the girl, calling him a fake. The girl tried to take him back, but she did not work out, and the man noticed that her joy did not last long. Yuyan was angry due to the fact that strangers call a genuine invitation by fake. Mr. Liu ordered the girl to follow the tongue and presented her with the respected master of their family, Jo. Jiang Yuyan immediately felt anxiety from the realization of what an influential person is now standing next to her. Jo family member tried to find out why there are scum, similar to the Jiang family at such a luxurious celebration. After these words, the anxiety evaporated, and irritation and anger returned in her place, but grandfather stopped Yuyan. The old man bowed to the respected Mr. Zhou and apologized to him for rudeness, and also said that the family was at their disposal. The man smiled angrily when he heard these words from the head of the Jiang family. Mr. Zhou threw out an invitation and accused Jiang's family members of being beaten by Mr. Liu. He shouted that he had previously wanted to regret them, but now he was thinking about taking measures regarding the situation with Liu. Jiang Yuyan did not understand what he was talking about, and explained that they did nothing to Mr. Liu. The girl threw a quick look towards Xinye and darkened when she realized that she had an attitude to this. Yuyan grabbed her sister by the hand and began to blame her for taking revenge on Liu Ji for courtship. Mrs. Jiang admitted that she could not be, because she did not even know about beating. Father Liu Jai did not believe the girl and ordered her not to pretend and lay out everything honestly, because otherwise the Zhang family will be forced to leave the city away tomorrow immediately. Their quarrel was interrupted by the appearance of Van Zheng. Behind him was a little princess who stood next to the great and Xiao Qing. Mr. Van was not going to endure those who are satisfied with family showdowns in such a place. The baby saw her mother and called her. Xin Yu was surprised to see Xin, but she was delighted with the presence of her daughter. The girl held her dad's hand and joyfully waved Xin Tue. Yuisin explained that dad asked to make a surprise for his mother. Mr. Zhou looked at new people with neglect and asked Liu Van who they were. The head of the family, Liu, said that the disabled person in the stroller is Jiang Xinhui's husband, Lin Feng, and the girl is their daughter. The man hugged Mr. Liu and began to laugh to tears. Mr. Zhou did not understand the meaning of the existence of such discharges. After all, they can neither speak nor move. The male laughter was interrupted by Lin Feng, that he could not yet. Zhang Xinhu looked at her husband and could not believe that Lin Feng really woke up. The baby was next to her mother, and now she could show her evidence that she was telling the truth. Mr. Zhou believed that the awakening of Lin Feng is pointless, since he could only sit in a stroller. The great southern territories only snorted on such a statement and stood on his feet, releasing an ominous aura. After that, he asked what was next, but Mr. Zhou was very amazed at what he saw. But confusion did not last long, and a member of the family of Zhou was about to break his guy's legs and take revenge on the Liu family. The protagonist suddenly got up from a wheelchair and asked Zhou, would he really break his legs? Xin was shocked by the fact that her husband was able to get up. Yu was also delighted with such a turn of events. The young master urged Yue not to cry and said that now he is with her and everything will be fine. The dumbfounded wife nodded her head approvingly and smiled, because for her it really was a miracle. The brutalized Yu Yan, in turn, rushed at a young cultivator with fists, stating that he would better die. The guy dismissed her and straightened his t-shirt, after which he looked menacingly at Yan. Lin also ordered her to immediately shut up and not to arrange such scenes here. Xiao completely hit her and urged her to know her place so as not to fall into trouble. Shocked, Yu collapsed to the ground and stated that she would not leave it so simply. King once again demanded that Yan be silent and not provoke her. Soon, Feng urged his girlfriend to leave so as not to create even greater problems. However, Zhou asked him to stay, since he had an important conversation to him, adding that the disabled person who just got to his feet is not capable of real affairs. His ministry noticed that at the Binhai celebration he was not a welcome guest. Lin said that in 5 minutes he could erase the Liu family from the face of the earth. Xiao was happy to help him in this, which was not surprising. Initially, Zhou and his assistant Van were at a loss. Then they laughed sharply and said that the Liu family owns billions of assets, and they are investments, so he will not succeed. At that moment, Van rang the phone and he hurried to delay the call. But he was informed that the financial chain of their company was brought down and they were on the verge of bankruptcy. The dumbfounded Liu hung up and said sadly that their corporation was ended. Zhou was also shocked and did not understand how this is possible, because they invested 2 billion in their company. Van immediately fell to his knees in front of the leaf and began to beg for forgiveness from him, saying that he was mistaken and in reality did not want anything bad to him. The teenager was silent. He was not sorry for such people, because they themselves were glitting troubles. Zhou, in turn, urged Feng to change his mind and not to take hasty actions. The young man asked if he really didn't want to break his legs. The arrogant guy said that Lin should thank him, because he is still on his feet. Feng looked at him and asked if he was really so sure of what he was saying. At the same moment, Zhou felt a strong aura emanating from the master. Then he handed the Imperial emblem and said that he had no right to harm him. Then the guy demonstrated the sign of the Empire to everyone around him and stated that Great Lin could not be present at the banquet. Due to the fact that he did not recover after injuries, Yuyan was extremely upset by such news because she was waiting for him. The main character immediately expressed his discontent. After that, the self-confident Zhou asked the young master, does he really not believe him? The young cultivator, in turn, with a sharp movement of his hands, took away the Imperial emblem from him. An extremely indignant guy ordered him to immediately return this little thing. However, Feng said that the entire Imperial family is useless people. Then, he destroyed the symbol of the Empire and stated that the return of the Great Line to restore forces was the purest lie. Everyone was literally shocked by a teenager's tricks and simply froze in place. The furious Yu shouted that Feng survived completely from the mind because he insulted the Imperial family. Then I demanded from the old man so that he immediately deleted him from the Jiang's family tree. It seemed that grandfather was in no hurry to do this and plunged into the thought process. Suddenly, Yuisin said that her dad was never afraid of anyone. Yan began to insult a little girl and even tried to hit her. What naturally did not allow Lin, who gave a slap in the face of a fucking personality. Feng also said that she had no right to touch the daughter of the great master. The battered Yuyan once again extremely painfully landed on the ground. However, suddenly she realized that in fact he was the very great Tench. What in turn asked and dumbfounded Jo, suggesting that it was a lie. But the young patron responded positively. At that moment, the subordinate of Xiao approached him. A moment later, the teenager threw himself over the tunic, from which everyone fell into shock. After that, Feng unexpectedly called himself the Great Southern Territories. Everyone continued to be silent. Signified Xinyu finally realized that he was the very person who helped her all this time. Then Lin told the whole truth that he had not previously revealed his identity so that she would be worried. Yan could not understand why the great warrior chose her relative. The old man also could not understand how this is possible for the disabled person to be a legendary person. Suddenly, Dr. Li came up to them and confirmed that this young man is really the same warrior. People began to whisper among themselves, saying that it was a doctor of the Imperial court, and he would not lie. Xinchen immediately leaned in front of Fan and said that he vowed his life to follow him. The teenager, in turn, replied quite imminent that he should not worship him. However, the young gentleman from the Jo family began to ironize too much, asking the protagonist how much he paid to arrange this performance. The old man instantly struck him and said that he hates such arrogant people. Thus, the guy collapsed to the ground and fiercely said that no one had the right to touch him. After all, he is a representative of the influential Jo family, and this will not remain unpunished. At that moment, Xinfena ignited the incredible power of the aura and said that he would take care of his family. The dumbfounded young man once again said that his clan is one of the most powerful in the city, but this did not stop the old man, and he spent a few more blows. As a result, Jo flew to the side while receiving significant damage. Li, in turn, asked the Great Master what to do next. The young cultivator immediately ordered Jin to expel the families Jo and Liu outside the banquet. Yuyan and his old man were extremely outraged by this decision of Lin. Van instantly began to fulfill the order and asked them to follow him. Then Yan asked why Xinye remains, because she also bears their last name. Grandfather finally called her to settle down and not aggravate this situation. At that moment, Sui thought only about one thing, that she was a mother-in-law of a great warrior. Meanwhile, Zheng was already calling everyone who was having fun and drink well. Naturally, the first toast sounded in honor of the return of the unsurpassed Fan. Most of the guests were also happy with his sudden appearance. Moreover, they understood how powerful he was. At that time, Van went out of uninvited guests in the person of the old man and Yuyan for the fence. Yan thought all the way that some disabled person turned out to be a great warrior. Grandfather noted that in the past, he was actually a general of the army. But the restless girl constantly stated that he was just his namesake, and soon she recognized the truth. In the meantime, Shen sat in the capital in his imperial palace and thought about the return of Lin. Suddenly, his servant said that Shan was beaten by old Xinfan. At the same time, Feng drove him out of the Binhai celebration and destroyed the imperial emblem in front of the guests. The Lord of the Dragons suggested that Li decided to go over to the side of the great Lin and thereby leave the imperial court. Then he came to the conclusion that it was better to end him, which he asked for his hired killer. However, the minister said that it was impossible to approach him, since he began to act extremely carefully. Yan in response fiercely said that they are all insignificants that can be trusted. In the end result, the Lord of the Dragon attacked his servant. The magic hand literally knocked down the mercenary. Shen urged him to take care of the old man again. The dumbfounded thug collapsed painfully to the ground and immediately tried to get to his feet. Yan also mentioned the #1 weapon to deal with his family Zhang and Fan. At the same time, it was necessary to make sure that the Ju clan took measures. The warrior instantly replied that everything would be organized. The leader of the magic dragons was left alone with him and wanted only one, as soon as possible, destroy the line. At this time, the young master, together with their family and daughter, headed home. Feng put Yusin on his neck. The girl began to play his home playfully. Finally, they came home, but the baby wanted to play with dad. Sui and the youngest daughter, in turn, celebrated a perfectly spent day. But Xinyu seemed to be something very upset and walked, staring at the floor. The little girl naturally saw a saddened mother and could not understand what was with her. In this connection, I instantly informed the dad about this. saying that mom does not look happy. In scene at that moment, we had already entered the room and found a certain box on the table. Sui decided that the son-in-law decided to please her. Inside was a ring and a gold chain. The dumbfounded sister of Yue said, "This is a ring with a real pearl." Mother immediately grabbed a huge gold chain and said that it was an incredible gift. But the displeased Shin drove them out and said that she has a serious conversation with her husband. The youngest daughter urged her mother to honestly share between them gifts from Feng. Yue, in turn, sent Yusin to wash and go to bed, as she needed to talk with a Linum. The guy noticed that a little later they would definitely rise to her room. A joyful girl listened to her parents and immediately ran up to brush her teeth before going to bed. Yu instantly began her interrogation and asked when Feng woke up. Lin answered when they mocked his daughter, which of course led to the negative reaction of his wife, and she could not restrain herself. As a result, she gave the young man a slap in the face and asked why he had not said about it before. Feng grabbed her hand and tried to explain everything, because when he woke up, he immediately met Suna. Then he thought that she would marry him, and a completely different life would begin. Shin replied that she had no other choice because the company was on the verge of bankruptcy. The guy suddenly hugged her and said that now everything would be in order, especially since they have such a good daughter. Lin understood that now it was necessary to cancel the search for generals by Beish with Zhu Zue and Shuanam W. The next morning, they began to have breakfast with the whole friendly family. A sweet daughter suddenly asked her dad to pour her water. Yue looked at her phone. The protagonist began to pour the water. Yu and Shin unexpectedly asked if he was the same great warrior. Since there is no information on the internet about him and an absolutely empty dossier, the news also claimed that he is the most ordinary person. The young master replied that he did not care about any information, not to mention her absence. Suddenly, her beloved wife noticed that she took a vacation to take care of him. The young cultivator was extremely grateful to her for this, which he talked about. At that moment, an indefatigable mother-in-law suddenly came to them and stated that he was not a great warrior. Shocked, Jinye asked what this statement was justified. The brutal Tsui In threw a certain folder on her table and called for familiarization with evidence. The non-understanding girl took out some papers where she read that the identity of the general was falsified. Yu Yan noticed that this ragged man decided to impersonate the legendary warrior. Yua read further that Feng from the village of Nuziao in the Xianhai area. At the same time, it was written that he was a local poor tramp. Blue was in shock. The girl showed this dossier line and asked if all this was true and what was happening at all. Yuyan interrupted them and hastened to report that Yue no longer works for them in the company and they must leave this house. Sui was dumbfounded by such a demand and did not know what to do in this situation. However, the great master only smiled and looked at his beloved daughter. Then I asked Little Blue. She would not want to have a house with a sea view. Naturally, Yu shouted enthusiastically that of course she would like to move there. A perplexing wife asked Feng what he was talking about and what was happening. The guy asked her to just trust him. Then Lin took his mobile phone. Li was fury of their calm, because they are trying to take away the house from them. The teenager meanwhile called Xiao and asked her to take his family to Bishuha. Yan suddenly laughed and asked where he got access to the area of rich and influential personalities. The young man ignored her attempt to provocate and, smiling at his daughter, said that they were going to the sea. Then he turned to his dumbfounded wife and urged her to start fees, as he would soon arrive. Yuyan continued to pester him with her stupid questions and was interested in where he was going to live. Finally, Feng replied that this house was a gift to the Jiang family in honor of their wedding with Yue. But if they want it so, they can take it. Sinya began to reflect and recall the recent events when a kind of girl called her sister Madame Lin, and that mysterious stranger who saved them with his mother was very similar to Feng. The girl realized that he was really a great warrior and asked him to wait with her sister, because she also wanted to go to the mansion with them in order to live in abundance and not need anything. Mother began to dissuade her. Yuyan, in turn, noticed that she would not help them, adding that he is obliged to reveal the truth to everyone and finally show himself real. After a certain time, the main character, together with his family, successfully reached his new home. It was a really luxurious place with sea views. Yusin instantly ran forward. The young master immediately called on the servant of Xiao to follow the child. He himself decided to find out what was happening to his wife and asked why she was silent all the way. Sinyu said that she was afraid. In the morning, it could all be a dream. The young cultivator approached his wife and said that it was all in reality, adding that for no good reason he will never disappear from her life again. Feng also said that he could not explain to her everything before, since he had not recovered. Moreover, he has too many enemies and sometimes it is necessary to act fiercely. But even at the same time, the girl did not leave the acute sensation that all this could be not true. Lin saw that Xinye still did not look happy and decided to fix it, having stated that he bought her a luxurious cottage with a view of the sea, and she was simply obliged to relax. The perplexing girl was initially silent, after which she suddenly laughed, saying that sometimes he has such a sweet face, to which he could not resist. The teenager confusedly said that only she was able to see it, because it was for her that he tries with all his might. At that moment, his phone rang and Feng hastened to answer. Meanwhile, Yue, was distracted by an excessively active daughter. On the phone, Linya was informed of extremely important news, and he said that he would come soon. Xinye's smile changed sharply to concern. Yue asked what happened. The guy replied that he had been called from the military ministry, and he needed to leave. Yuxin did not hear their conversation and continued to build blocks of sand. Feng looked at his little princess and mentally apologized, because he had to leave again. Lin also noticed that the trip could take a couple of days and she should be careful. Xinyu pretended to understand everything and wished him a successful path. But she herself was in upset feelings. The teenager urged her for any reason to contact the Xiao, which was responsible for their safety. The main character, in turn, instantly went to the headquarters to his friend Moon. The young master went to his office and greeted Tao. The guy was sincerely glad to see him. He immediately rushed to the former commander-in-chief of their headquarters and asked how he was doing. After all, they have not seen each other for so many years, and there were no news from the young cultivator. At the same time, Lun urged his subordinates to show respect for the legendary general. All employees immediately greeted the great warrior and returned to work. Tao noticed that all these years he replaced him as the head of the department, and since he finally returned, it means that he is again the commander-in-chief. Feng asked what he would do in this case. Lun replied that he needed to return to his family in order to inherit the property, adding that he still wanted to quit and return to a normal life. Lin was surprised and asked why main general suddenly free his place. A friend explained that in the command post some changes and each representative of the Imperial blood is assigned a scammer. And from the whole team he had only 2 people left, so he will have to bring a rustle in the main headquarters. The guy in turn said that soon the central administration would pass into the hands of a person from the Imperial family. The dumbfounded Tao asked how this is possible and how he knew. Feng ignored his question and asked why the friend actually called him. The general immediately shook himself and stated that his unexpected arrival excited everyone. Then he asked his ward Chan to bring him a folder from the archive. Soon Lun presented Linya all the notes on the rotation of the commanders of the National Armed Forces. At the same time, all the information about the personality of Fan was deleted, and only his disguised dossier remained. The teenager said that military departments are controlled by an imperial family and therefore should be quiet in the country. But Tao assured that these spoiled imperial families are completely unable to control the troops. After that, he showed Alina a summary that 10 cities were lost in the northwestern part. Also, there are no news about the blockade from Bake, and no one can understand what is happening. The perplexed fan specified with his friend, "Did Hu really lose the cities in the northern stream?" Lun sadly replied that this is really so, and he has a letter of 5 months ago from him, where the young man was able to make out the encrypted text and realize that in fact, the imperial authorities hid the fact of loss of territories. Presence Lin crushed the letter from anger and said that this was the whole work of Shane's hands. Then Tao asked why the Lord of Dragons with imperial families at the head of the military department was at the head of the military department. Feng replied that at the moment he did not know this, but sent a man to get more information. He perfectly understood that Yan decided to sacrifice the whole country to achieve his goals. Meanwhile, Jiang, where Yuyan was with his grandfather, the old man kept repeating that this was a difficult choice, and he does not know for sure whether they were doing the right thing. But Yan was absolutely sure that in fact a liar is a liar, and Xinye had nothing but her beauty. Moreover, during the reign of Yue, the corporation fell into an economic crisis several times. However, the old man noticed that along with her departure, several partners recalled their capital. Yan stated that at the same time they received 50 million forfeit. Grandfather could not stand her calm and shouted angrily that he did not see anything good in this situation. After all, everyone wants to cooperate only with a fan, and without investment their company will collapse. Adding that from that moment he takes the situation into his own hands and will try to correct the situation. But Yu continued to say that from the third uncle to Shin, there was nothing good in their family. The old man suddenly coughed and said that they have a third child. Then he called on her to gather, since they needed to visit the old man. Grandfather knew that the old man left a letter, which spoke about the secret way to correct a similar situation. In the late evening, the main character finally returned to the new chic house. Entering the cottage, the young master found that for some reason they did not work light. His charming wife slept in the living room on the couch. The young cultivator quietly called her. The girl immediately woke up and asked her husband, "Did he really return?" The guy took off his jacket and covered it with blue, asking why she was sleeping here. The enthusiastic girl instantly jumped up and said that she was waiting for his return. And now, when he returned home, she can finally go to bed calmly, adding that he also should not sit down for a long time and go to rest. A moment later, as always, Xiao climbed out the window, and Feng asked what news she brought. King said that from the moment his wife left his family Jiang, the partners refused to cooperate with their company. Also, power was transferred to the former enemy Lin, but it is not known to whom exactly. But it helps him in all Shen. At the same time, the assistant to the great warrior said that she has information about Beish. The young man immediately became interested and called on her immediately to tell about everything. She said that 5 months ago he was in the ownerless lands on the northwestern border. The perplexed general asked for what ownerless lands she talks about. The servant of Feng said that there are only ruins there and there was nothing alive. After listening to her, the teenager called on Qing to leave him alone in order to understand where to move on. Suddenly, the warrior said that soon the country could begin irreparable in the country. The next morning, the main character decided to surprise his family with a chic breakfast. What the joyful young master said, Yue was pleasantly surprised by such a surprise. The half, Sunny Blue, was interested in when he managed to return and prepare breakfast. She was also dumbfounded by the unexpected cook abilities of Feng. Having examined the table with delicious food, she also began to taste the linen. However, the young cultivator noted that this is all for his daughter and his wife, and if she is hungry, he can cook for himself. The girl naturally made a touchy look and walked past the table towards the refrigerator. At that moment, the same sleepy Yue entered the kitchen and greeted everyone. Feng noticed that she just woke up in time, as he had prepared her breakfast. Noticing the pale appearance of the wife, the young man asked if she had not got enough sleep. Xin said she constantly thinks about finding some kind of work. Suddenly, an embittered Suai entered the kitchen and called for him to repay the debt. Because while he was in a coma for 2 years, they looked after him. Yue called on her mother to shut up immediately, because she does not dare to say that. But In continued to say that a man should give money to a family, otherwise he is useless. Xin asked Feng not to pay attention to her mother, as she loves money too much. However, Lin said that she was absolutely right, and soon he would give his wife all funds. In the meantime, Sinya quietly sat down at the table and taking the opportunity to treat herself to the guy. But Yu took her a piece of meat. Fing himself suddenly asked Sinyu how her father died. The girl sadly said that when the daughters were 2 years old, he got into a car accident. The teenager asked, "Is it really all she knows and there is no details of what happened?" Then Xin said that most likely Yuyan did this, because she did not like it when her grandfather appointed her father his heir. Suddenly, Yusin said that his grandfather left them something special. Yuba was surprised because the daughter could not be aware of all the events. She was curious that the old man left. After a couple of minutes, a little girl brought a certain pendant and said that his grandfather asked him to pass it on to dad when he would return. The dumbfounded fan grabbed him and said that in fact, it was a stone of evolution. Jinyu noted that one day she saw this subject in her father's office. Lin explained that the Imperial family, like royal clans, have special tribal skills. But for the development of these abilities, it is necessary to use this particular pendant of evolution. Suddenly, the amulet was activated and shone with a certain magic. At that moment, the curious blue touched him. As a result, the magical radiance literally enveloped her tiny body. The shocked Yue instantly rushed to her daughter and asked if everything was in order with her. Feng also did not know what could happen to her now and was noticeably nervous. A certain time unknown magic held the girl above the ground. The main character of the concept did not have what to do and simply watched what was happening. A moment later, the radiance instantly disappeared and Yuisin collapsed to the floor. The parents immediately ran to her. A second later, the girl caught herself and said something fell into her stomach, and she had a rather strange feeling. The dumbfounded Yue asked the young master what to do. Lin answered, "From now on, their daughters will grow irreversibly." In this connection, the young cultivator hurried to call Dr. Li to find out what to do. Suddenly, Feng's phone flew into the air and soared for some time in space. After that, All kitchen appliances also began to break away from the table, as if in a vacuum. Yusin suddenly informed her parents that she was getting worse, as if an unknown force tried to get out of her. Thus, the whole house literally shook. Meanwhile, Sinya was near the building. The girl broke on a deck chair and enjoyed the prepared dish of the line. From the thought that the great warrior himself prepared her breakfast, the young lady was delighted. However, at that moment the house shook much more, and the girl felt powerful tremors on the ground. The frightened Blue suggested that it began a sudden earthquake. Suddenly, a worried fan ran out of the cottage and shouted Xiao to immediately call Dr. Li. Following him, Sinya ran out and called on the sister to leave this place. The sister asked what happened, but Yue did not explain anything to her. Once again, she urged her to leave, which brought Sinya to rabies. Once again, looking at the house, she came to the conclusion that it could be a tsunami. A moment later, huge waves really covered the girls with streams of water. They, in turn, did not have time to react and run away in the opposite direction from the house. As a result, both were on the sand, but serious damage was avoided. The dumbfounded Blue again asked her sister what was happening and what such indignation of nature is connected with. Sinya replied that she herself does not understand, but it was best for a while to leave here. The girl even began to think that these enemy troops invaded them across the sea. Yue, in turn, could not explain to her sister what really happened. She also had no idea what would now be with her daughter and whether the doctor can cure Yuishin. A few minutes later, Dr. Li and our heroes ran to the ship. The old man asked Feng. Did he really decide to lift the ban from the Imperial family? Lin answered positively and said that Yu's ability is to manage a magnetic field. And in the history of the Imperial family, this is a legend, adding that he has no right to expose his daughter, and in this regard, he decided to speed up the implementation of their plan. Then Lin asked Qing if the coastline was clean. Xiao replied that there was no one there. Then the young man urged everyone to prepare. Realizing that they were waiting ahead, the main character immediately took off his outer clothing, and Li said that there are 9 levels of prohibition. Then, he directed his magic needles at him and said that after his influence, he could only rely on himself. At the same time, in no case could it be lost in touch with reality, the old man instantly began to act. Several needles pierced the body of a young master with lightning speed. Everything shone with magic green light. The young cultivator, in turn, experienced no pleasant sensations. His back was literally inflamed with green fire. Blood suddenly flowed from his eyes. The process was extremely painful, but the great general kept to the last. Thus, he unlocked 5 layers, and the stages of the merger of blood came. Li continued this procedure and understood that Linya was clearly problems. Meanwhile, only 4 levels remained. Feng hoped that everything would work out. Little Yusin burst into tears and began to pray for her powerful dad, who overcame the incredible pain and did not think to give up for his family. Finally, after a certain time, Lin broke into the last stage. The sea raged. Huge waves continued to arrive at the shore. Suddenly, a hired killer, sent by the Lord of the Dragons, came out of the water. He understood that he needed to hurry to eliminate Feng, but the young man noticed him and said that an uninvited guest was approaching them. Killer realized that he was opened and instantly ducked under the water to hide. However, the waves again threw it to the surface, not without the help of a teenager. The thug was well aware of what unimaginable power Lin has. He wanted to quickly report everything to his patron, but suddenly lightning struck him, which was also provoked by the great warrior. His hands sparkled with electric discharges. Xiao in turn brought Feng's clothes and called him to dress, because after lifting the ban, he was still weak. The guy said that Qing had to cleanse the entire perimeter of not desired faces. The girl apologized to the general. After some time, finally, it ended, and they returned home. But Xinhu had an extremely painful appearance, and Lin was concerned about her condition. The girl was excessively hot, and Feng suggested that she fell ill, in connection with which he immediately carried her to bed under a warm blanket and fell asleep. Lao called him in this moment, but the guy postponed their conversation, saying that he was busy now. After a couple of hours, Jin suddenly opened her eyes and said the name of her husband. The main character instantly rushed to her and asked if she was better. Naturally, only one thing, where Yu was located. The young master stated that she was with Dr. Li in the living room. Xinyu tried to get up and said that she was obliged to see her, but the guy insisted that she rest. At this time, grandfather entertained Yu as he could, but she was still bored. Then the old man began to invent various games in order to at least somehow distract the child. Suddenly, Shin said that she should ask Dad one very important question. At that moment, the young cultivator with Yue entered the living room and Feng asked what exactly the daughter wanted to ask about. A joyful girl instantly rushed to her mother and stated that she had woken up just in time. But Lin took the baby from Blue, as she still had a high temperature. Suddenly, the old man called on the great general to let Yusin go with him. The perplexing Yue asked what was happening and where he gathered her story. Feng stated that their daughter aroused the Imperial genealogy and now will become her teacher, because they could not find the best candidate. The doctor also reminded her that the war in the Northwest continues and the current situation is not comforting. At the same time, the Imperial family intentionally hides this fact, thereby creating the illusion of prosperity. And the presence of a line in the capital threatens with unforeseen situations. Therefore, it is she and Shin that are his weak place. The dumbfounded Yue asked her husband why he had not told her about everything before. The old man noticed that he understands her. She is full of doubt. But they really have no other way out. The girl sadly said that their daughter was so small and did not realize all the seriousness. Having thought a little, naturally, the mother refused to give her treasure. But the old man guaranteed the security of the child and assured that training would take more than a year. Feng, in turn, picked up Yu and said that if she wants to stay with her mother, then they will not interfere with this. Surprisingly, in her years, the girl was amazingly smart and understood that if she was not stronger, then dad would be difficult. After all, if he go to war again, his mother will be no longer protected. Shin immediately jumped up, after which she extremely confidently stated that she would study, and Li and dad would kill all enemies while she could protect her mother. The old man was surprised by the baby's speech and rushed her to go with him and start training. But the girl suddenly gave her list to dad and said that he should always be with him. The baby recorded all her wishes, which the line could not realize. He became sad from this thought, because they did not even have time to take a walk with the whole family. Yuisun, meanwhile, cried and pulled her grandfather Li. It was difficult for her to say goodbye to the whole year. At the same time, the little girl called on her parents certainly to wait for her return. Yue also could not restrain her tears. She was horrified by what was happening. Soon they ran out into the street and the old man simply did not keep up with the hasty Yu. Shin dreamed of the day when she will return home to protect her family. Yue, in turn, could not calm down from separation from her own child. The main character tried to console her, but the young master understood that he would soon have to go to remote places, and Sinyu would not be safe. The saddened wife suddenly asked him, was he really to leave? The young cultivator said that in the Northwest he has scammers, but in this country it is not safe now, adding that she should not worry about it since he is a great warrior and can handle everything. But before Fan left, there was one unfinished business that concerned Zhang's family. Where they soon went, the perplexing Yue asked why they came here. Lin asked her a counter question. She would like to return to this house. The girl replied that she did not know. The guy noticed that she should think about it when they would deal with everything. In fact, she was not very pleased to be here, and she still wanted to understand why they were here. A moment later, Yuyan and the old man came out to them. He asked why they granted them. Feng asked Xiao to provide him with a folder with certain documents, what she did. After that, a self-confident young man threw this package to them and urged them to get acquainted with its contents, adding that this is the news that his subordinates collected this morning. Then Lin said that Father Shinya died in a car accident was not accidentally. Also of his death, the great warrior accused Yan. The girl immediately began to deny everything. Grandfather could not stand it and gave her a slap in the face, ordering her to shut up immediately. At the same time, the dumbfounded old man said that all these years he was blind and did not know the truth. Yue was shocked by the fact that her suspicions were not without soil. Finally, Yu spoke that she did not kill him and only wanted to warn him because the inheritance was supposed to go to her. Sinyu literally froze in place and asked her how she could do that. Yan replied that in the accident itself she was not to blame, and he was simply unlucky. The angry Yue continued to demand explanations from her. Feng suddenly heard a rustle outside. A moment later, distant voices from the street began to say that they could be heard. Lin smiled and asked the old man whether it was hard to feed rats in the Jiang family. Xiao instantly ran out into the street, saying that she would personally deal with them. Grandfather in turn said that the guy crossed the line and this is already too much. In addition, no one gave him the right to treat the Jiang family in this way. Then Feng was curious where the rats came from outside and why they were there at all. After a certain time, Qing nevertheless found one of the servants of the Jiang family. In total, a couple of blows, she convinced him to go into the living room. The unknown collapsed to the floor, saying that it was already too late and he did the work entrusted to him. so they cannot stop him. After that, the demonstration of the family tried to escape, but he never managed to do this. Since Xiu knocked down a stranger with a lightning attack, and he again flew to the side, but this time he ruined the table with himself and crashed to the floor with a roar. Feng only managed to bounce. The wounded thug finally realized that he would not be able to escape so easily. However, after a couple of seconds, he began to mutate in a terrible monster with horns, literally turn into a feces of hell. The monster began to provoke those present in the room. At the same time, he stated that he did not feel anything like this for decades and he had a lot of strength. The main character suggested that he mutated thanks to Imperial blood. Taking this opportunity, Yu said that the death of Father Sinyu, the work of this demon, grandfather, in turn, was dumbfounded by the reincarnation of man into a monster because he never saw this. The young master called on Qing's assistant to deal with this monster and rushed to take his wife. The extremely self-confident Xiao threw off her cloak and prepared for a mortal battle. A moment later, she grabbed her magic dagger and rushed to the demon. The mutated monster understood that he should never be missed by the line. In this connection, he rushed in his direction, urging the great warrior to give him an honest battle. But he naturally blocked the path of Qing, which hastened to inflict several blows to him with a knife. However, the monster turned out to be quite dexterous and was able to evade the fierce attacks of the girl. Xiaogan once again rushed into battle. It seemed that her fearlessness had no bounds. In just a couple of seconds, the young warrior defeated a self-confident mutant. The servant of Feng had the opportunity to move in space like lightning, which more than once helped her in a duel. The demon held on to the neck, which continued to bleed. He could not understand how the girl could hold such a quick attack. The warrior herself said that his frightening image did not work, because in fact he is a weak. Yuyan was shocked from this scene, and also could not understand how Qin defeated the monster with one blow. Xiao immediately pushed her to the side, urging her no more nonsense. Meanwhile, she took the headphone from the unknown and heard a rather familiar voice. The assistant to the great general instantly called Lin to listen. The guy took the headphone and began to listen. There was no doubt, it was Shan's voice. The young man immediately called his name. Frightened Zhou asked who it was and how he knows him. The young cultivator again repeated his question. Shan, in turn, tried to understand who it was. The main character understood that in vain at that time he spared this man, and he should teach a lesson. Grandfather Jiang was dumbfounded by the fact that the Zhou family wants to go against his clan. Then he decided to remind the young master that he was in debt to his family. Lin replied that he promised himself to protect them, but they humiliated his beloved wife. Then the old man said that the whole inheritance and the house would go into the possession of Sinyu, but Yu was against it. Feng immediately asked Yue whether she agreed to such a solution to the problem. The shocked girl replied that she already wanted nothing. Then Shanhai realized that most likely it would not be possible to agree with the great warrior. Xin looked at the old man and thought how he could allow the Jiang family to turn into garbage. Then she said that they kicked her out of the house and deprived her of work, so they should say goodbye. Lin noted that after he dealt with the Zhou family, they will be counted. Soon they left the house, and embittered Yan began to say that he would not do anything to them. The angry Hai ordered her to shut up immediately, adding that she was very disappointing him. At this time, Lin asked Xiao to take his wife home so that she properly rested, and he will go to the capital for a couple of days, which naturally Sinyu was not happy. Qing tried to console her, saying that the general always brings the matter to the end and everything will be fine. Yuke suddenly asked her who this dangerous man is from the capital. Xiaoshen replied that his name is Yan Shen, and he is the strongest representative of Imperial blood. The girl was restless from this information, and she instantly thought about Fan. The assistant, Lin, smiled and said that her husband had no equal outside the capital. Meanwhile, in the capital, namely in the mansion of the Zhou family, where Father Shan talked with his old man, they discussed the problem with the confidentiality of information about the line. There was no word anywhere about him. The conversation also came to the young emperor because he had patience and they needed his support. However, Chunshan failed the task and they should again think of how to destroy Feng. Grandfather urged his son to hurry until the great general recovered, using effective weapons against him. At that moment, suddenly the guy broke into the office with their offspring. Shan was greatly beaten and begged relatives to help him. His father became furious. Feng, in turn, absolutely calmly asked which of them the head of the family. The dumbfounded old man ordered him to name his name and asked a counterclaim that he has the right to break into their house. The wounded Shan spoke in a stifled voice that he was the same Muffle. Father and grandfather were shocked by such news and called him to let the younger Zhou release him. Yusin at that time seemed to feel a kind of connection with his father and realized that he was now in trouble. At that moment, the old man told the chief hero that he himself came to them and this is good. After that, talking to the young master, he quietly pressed the button on his cane. Then he blurred in a malicious grin and said that the young cultivator fell into a trap. The fearless great warrior turned around and saw a huge chandelier on the ceiling, which instantly sank right on him, thereby closing it under the grate. The old man also notified him that he now has only two ways: leave yourself for a contemptuous existence and transfer the Jiang family into their hands, or the Jo family will send his head to the young emperor. Silence reigned in the room again. However, his son urged at first to save Sean because he was with Fan behind bars. The frightened teenager began to strictly ask his relatives to let him out. At a certain moment, Jo burst out of his hands and thereby pulled out a tuft of hair. The general, in turn, said that he just wanted to discuss a couple of points, but they begged for trouble. After all, the latter who provoked him is already dead, and his corpse has not yet cooled. Shaney's father began to realize that it was really better not to contact him. The old man continued to force the guy to make a choice, otherwise death awaits him. The young man asked if this grandfather is the main in the Jo family. The old man once again did not answer him and pressed the button on his cane. As a result, the whole cage sparkled with lightning-bearing categories of electricity. However, this did not cause any damage to Fan. The guy calmly stood inside the cage, while Sean seemed to be dead from so many electric shocks. His frightened father again panicked and called on the old man. He will stop immediately. But his grandfather said that his offspring was completely useless and deserved such a fate. And after they finished the line, the emperor generously thanked them and they will forget about it as a terrible dream. Surprised, Feng asked if Yan had already managed to become an emperor, adding that he had to warn them because such tricks would not work against him. After that, the legendary warrior grabbed the sparkling pipe of the grill, and after a moment, the cage scattered into small pieces. Everyone was shocked by such a teenager's strength, but even in this case, the old man continued to say that Linnea was not to get out alive. He immediately called his bodyguards, and after a couple of seconds, they ran into the office. Their number was excessively large, and they simply filled the entire room. The old man suddenly took off his glasses and said that from now on, he would not be called great. The guards, in turn, instantly opened fire on the main character of machine guns. However, the bullets could not take it, as the young master activated the shield in a timely manner. The magic barrier literally absorbed all the damage, and Feng gradually approached the goal. Some bodyguards tried to interfere with the young cultivator, but the guy quickly reassured them. Suddenly, one of them took a special rifle, and the old man ordered him to immediately shoot. The arrow was already next to the great warrior, but never reached its goal. Because Lin had an excellent reaction and caught the arrow literally raid, grandfather continued to say that the one who goes against Imperial families always dies. At that moment, fire was again opened from all the guns, while arranging a cannonade in the house. The head of the family, Jo, received a true pleasure from what was happening and called for continuing fire. A few more explosions thundered. The room quickly turned into ruins. The old man himself stated that he was not even sorry for the mansion for such an important person. He naively believed that the general had already gone to the kingdom of the dead, but this was not so. A moment later, the young man jumped out of the ruins and immediately attacked the old man. Thus, he stuck a knife into his head. His son was shocked by such a picture. After all, in just a few minutes he lost his father and son, which was unbearable to realize. Feng noticed that their tiny shells are absolutely useless against him. The brutalized Jo said that he killed his family and should go after them, adding that he has a kind of surprise for an uninvited guest, after which he gave a signal to his guards, who looked at each other among themselves and began to turn into monsters. In the end result, they mutated in monsters, similar to the recently bursting into the house of Shanhai. Ibao and Eku were the task of destroying the general, and with him, the Jiang family. Jo also said that if they do everything in the best possible way, they can be free. The demons immediately approached Linnea and reported that for the future of the country, it was better for him to disappear. Feng in turn asked them, did they really mutate with the help of Imperial blood? Naturally, Verzili did not answer him and hurried to eliminate. However, it was quite difficult to do, since the guy was excessively fast. As a result, they simply did not have time after him. At some point, the young man completely pushed them together. Thus, Echo struck Ibao, trying to get along the dodgy line. Feng noticed that they are really quite strong, but this is not enough, since speed sometimes decides everything, after which he attacked one of them from the back. Such an outcome of the battle did not suit demons, and they tried to rectify the situation. But, as before, the main character evaded all attacks and used magic barriers. Once again, the monster attacked the young master, but Lin bounced to the side. After that, Ebao again struck a crushing blow to the young cultivator. Feng suddenly restrained his hand. What the werewolf itself was extremely surprised, not understanding how a person could easily block his attack. Soon the great warrior began to beat him, thereby checking for strength. After all, he was eager to find out more about their mutation. Besides, they clearly not only became stronger. In this connection, the teenager grabbed a machine gun from the floor and decided to find out the thickness of the monster's skin. But as practice showed, they have not yet come up with medicines from a shot in the head. Therefore, Feng soon finished with the demons, sending them after the recent enemies. He also blew up the building, turning everything into ruins, and went behind Jo, which at this time rushed along the corridors in his secret room, where he was going to urgently contact his patron in the face of Shen. But the Lord of the Dragons did not answer suspiciously for a long time, and Jo began to get nervous. He neatly peered out of the doorway, but he no longer heard any noise. At that moment, the young emperor finally got in touch and asked why he bothers him. The frightened subordinate said that they used their main weapon against Feng, but Yan ordered him to call the old man to personally talk about everything with him. The stuttering Jo replied that at the moment he is busy with Alinum and could not come. Shen immediately guessed that he was really lying, and Feng had already figured out the old man, which he said to him. The servant Yanya said that this is really that, and they had not big problems. But it was at that moment that the great general attacked him from the back and struck a mortal blow, thus finally killing Jo, whose body instantly collapsed to the ground. The royal emperor was shocked by such a turn of events and saw a guy. Feng, in turn, also greeted Shane and noticed that they had not seen each other for a long time. The Lord of the Dragons said that he was really incredible and was able to resist the whole clan alone. Also, Janny's secret weapon, which could not defeat the line, the young man told how to easily use their development against them, adding that for so many years the emperor had to grow wiser, but apparently he was not given it. What a strongly angry Shane. He began to insult Feng and say that he did not stay long. Yan suddenly settled down and in an extremely unexpected way began to call the protagonist to go to his side. Naturally, the answer of the young master was not long in coming, and he said that this would never happen. The ruler of dragons said that the young cultivator is still naive, but in order to become the emperor, it is necessary to shed blood. In fact, the emperor at that time activated the self-destruction system in the house of Jo. There were only 5 seconds before the explosion, for which Shen managed to report that the spear of God Feng was destroyed. He also spoke about the system of self-destruction. Lin immediately with his eyes found explosives, but at that moment the house was already smashed into small pieces. The sky was illuminated by fire. Xinyu suddenly woke up in the middle of the night with her beloved husband. Obsessive negative thoughts did not give her rest, and she decided to call him. However, his mobile did not answer, and the operator said that this number is more unavailable. The shocked Yue began to walk around the room from side to side, not understanding what was happening. Xiao instantly heard the noise in her bedroom and immediately ran to her, asking what was the matter. Xin said that the line had a phone, and this had never happened before. In addition, she has an extremely poor foreboding. Xiao tried in every possible way to calm her down, speaking that they have an emergency connection just in case. But suddenly Yue thought that if he is on a mission now, then it was better not to distract him. Therefore, she decided not to disturb him and asked Qing to go to bed. The girl herself sat down on the bed and continued to think about her beloved fan. Suddenly, her head was very dizzy, and subsequently she lost consciousness. Lin found out about what happened and immediately arrived at the hospital, where Xiao brought his wife. After that, the guy went to the doctor, who said that she should have a rest and she had overwork. By adding that ordinary people are difficult to cope in such a situation with their emotions, Feng looked at his lover and asked if there was something unusual. Then the doctor said that he conducted a full examination and noticed a certain deviation of the norms. This ailment could be caused by a strong fright or mental disorder. The dumbfounded Lin asked him to do everything he needed for his wife. At that moment, he suddenly heard the distant cries of the indignant crowd. In this connection, he looked out the window and saw striking people with banners. The young man asked what was happening. A moment later, Xiao ran into the ward. King notified Feng that 2 hours ago, the northwestern front line became subject to the control of the Imperial family. The general was shocked by the news heard and could not believe that this still happened. The protagonist asked Xiaoqin who broke the agreement, Shen or the Northwest. King said that Yan was too busy with his ceremony, and therefore the northern parts dared to this step. The young master plunged into the thought process and noticed that these people do not even understand what they were asking for. At the same time, they caused to solve the problem of the young cultivator and not the head of state. Also, the commander of the Binhai military headquarters was replaced by a member of the Imperial family, and now management requires that the great general finally resigned. The servant of Feng said she did not quite understand his position about this situation, but Lin firmly decided to go to the northwestern part of the country to help people. In this connection, the young man ordered Qing to stay with his wife and not to lower her eyes off her. The guy himself first went to his old friend Moon. Tai, meanwhile, was still dumbfounded by the last news and lay on the couch. Suddenly, he heard a knock on the door and menacingly asked who brought there. A second later, Feng entered the office and stated that now is not the time to relax, since the Northwest in danger. The surprised Moon asked what he was talking about and what happened at all. Without thinking twice, Lin said that they were obliged. He would go to the Northwest, adding that this is by no means an order but more as a proposal. However, Tao said that they were removed from his post, and there was no need for this. Feng said that this is exclusively his initiative and only to decide what to do. The general's friend replied that the Imperial family is still on people, and they were only concerned with the ceremony. And in the best case, they need to be destroyed by all. The Moon began excessively aggressively talking about this problem. Lin called him to calm down. Soon Tao nevertheless agreed to go with him to save the country. After some time, the helicopter was already ready to travel to the northwest. The great warrior, along with his devoted friend, hurried to the helicopter site. Before the departure, the protagonist addressed his subordinate Zheng with one request. He handed him a sign of his personal army of Haixia and called for activating him in case of danger. Van also became the new ruler of Binghai. Zheng proudly accepted this position and said that he would do everything necessary. The servant asked the general to wait a bit, as his wife asked him to convey one thing. The guy climbed into the inner pocket of the jacket and took out a brilliant object from there. It was a watch with a photograph of Xinya. Feng was touched by such a gift of his wife. Lin asked to tell her that he would definitely return alive and everything would be fine. Lun called his friend to hurry because love and girls kill the fighter's fighting spirit. At that moment, they suddenly called out by Chan, whom they obviously did not expect to see. The extremely surprised protagonist asked the guy how he got here. The young man replied that there was no place on Earth where he could not penetrate. The great warrior greeted the new member of the team and noticed that they had not seen each other for a long time. Lun, in turn, asked him why he came to Binhai alone, because Chan is a master of dragons. The young cultivator rushed Tao and urged him not to ask such questions to Feng. Sitting in a helicopter, the guy said that earlier ordinary people without a genealogy could take the post of Lord of Dragons. But he was engaged in scientific research and did not know that Shen had already sent someone behind him. And since last year, he was under arrest in the house of Yan, who forced him to study the blood merger between the Imperial and Royal clan. The young master was wary and asked if this study worked. Chan replied that Shen used the blood of a large number of royal families to suppress his blood, and now he needs to hold a ceremony to survive. And in this regard, Feng managed to escape. Lin said that he is immensely happy with his return and everything is fine with him. At that moment, the moon came to them and called for a descending, since less than 50 miles remained to the city of Inju, having added that the city is very large and inhabited, so they are easy to penetrate inside. The general said that after their landing, the helicopter is obliged to go back. Then he asked all the team members whether they are sure that they would go with him, because most likely there will be no reinforcement. And accordingly, there is no longer any way back, because it is not known what awaits them ahead. Naturally, Tao was devoted to him and said that it was too late to return. Chung also supported the moon and said that there was no road back, which means that they only need to go forward. Soon they jumped out of the helicopter. The guy shouted that the enemy would not receive their territory. It is worth noting that Inju was the nearest city to the northwestern front line. Having landed, Tao immediately began to look for at least some information about the city, but it was absent. Then they went to go home to city residents and asked them about what was happening here. However, people, seeing the soldiers in military uniform and hearing about the operational group, instantly closed the door. What was extremely surprised by the moon, because he did not even have time to finish, and he had already refused to conduct a dialogue, Lin noticed that they would certainly learn about the current situation and asked how far the city stronghold is located. Tao glanced at the map and said that after 30 kilometers of the journey through the wasteland, they would get to the destination. Meanwhile, they were followed by an unknown little boy who hid behind a huge stone. Suddenly, he climbed out of the stone and looked towards the military group. The main character saw him and offered sweets in exchange for information about the city's stronghold. However, the child simply froze on the spot and looked at sweets. The young master asked if he was hungry. The young cultivator called him not afraid of him, since they were soldiers. Suddenly, the baby took the sweets. Then he asked if they had arrived in order to defeat bad people. In the final result, the Malay ate all the sweets and said that there would be absolutely no one to take care of them. Feng continued to claim that they would help them. Suddenly, the boy asked them to follow him. Meanwhile, rumors reached the bandits on the stronghold that Imperial soldiers invaded Inju. The leader of the thugs ordered his people to go down and see what was happening there. Having been in a certain basement, the child told Lin that his dad would not help them. After all, after the death of his brother on the southern border, he became a coward and did not even try to avenge his son, adding that he will help them only once, and if they find something important, then they will need to leave. Then he opened the door and noticed that he no longer counted on help. Inside the premises were their compatriots in military uniform. Everything was forced by some boxes. All of them were bandaged from numerous wounds and looked at their saviors. The guy said that there is food which he and his father saved last year. One of the soldiers asked Feng who sent them, and whether they would take them out of here. Lin replied that they arrived not by order of the Emperor, but to protect their house. Then the great warrior ordered everyone to get up to give further instructions. At this time, the bandits were already breaking into the settlement and ordered the soldiers to go outside. Their leader promised the townspeople a reward if they inform him where the warriors are located. In response, there was a grave silence. People instantly closed in their homes. Then, the leader of the terrorists began to break into the house to the old man who lived nearby. Grandfather, in turn, hid in the corner of the building, hoping that the doors would withstand. The thug once again said that they would receive their protection in exchange for information about soldiers. At that moment, a sniper rifle stuck out from behind the stabbed boards. Feng ordered everyone to prepare for a sudden attack. By that time, the bandits decided to set fire to the houses of citizens, because they continued to hide the soldiers in the house. A moment later, a shot sounded and one of the terrorists collapsed to the ground with a bullet in his head. The other immediately began to look around, scared around, but there was nobody nearby. After a couple of seconds, Lin attacked him and knocked out a weapon, after which he delivered a crushing blow. The leader of the bandits, in turn, realized that this is not just a soldier. Therefore, he needed to take more people with him. But it was too late. Feng dealt with him and went to the leader of the terrorists, who tried to escape. It is worth noting that earlier generals were recognized by emblems on the chest and not by faces. The bandit pretended not to notice the protagonist and continued to knock the old man into the house. The young master understood that he was doing this intentionally to escape after that. But the young cultivator did not provide him with such an opportunity and threw the stone into it. At the same time, he stated that he would better work on his vigilance. The leader of the gang, with a sharp movement, turned to him and instantly opened fire from machine guns. However, the bullets did not take a great warrior. Besides, he easily evaded them. Then he attacked Verzila and said that he would not harm him firearms because he was a representative of Imperial blood. The leader of the terrorist group tried to shoot again, but Feng grabbed his machine guns and took them to the sides. The bandit finally realized that this person is a great general, about which he asked him. The guy confirmed his guesses and grabbed an automatic rifle from his hands. Then he tumbled him to the ground and instructed the machine gun, saying that he should behave well. Meanwhile, one of the terrorists hid behind the stone and literally trembled with fear. Suddenly, he ran out from behind the shelter and brought the sight to the tench, but did not have time to shoot, since with a lightning, fast movement, the young man had already put a muzzle of a machine gun to his head. The teenager instantly fell to his knees and began to ask not to kill him, because he has an old mother who needs to be taken care of. Feng looked at him and asked if he spared those people, because they also begged not to kill them. The old man, in turn, heard that everything calmed down in the district and opened the door. He peered scaredly and saw the bloodied bodies of the bandits. Lin stood in front of him. He claimed that he had arrived at the aid. At the same time, the guy advised him to stay at home until he dealt with the rest of the thugs. The old man suddenly asked if the country's government deigned to save them. Feng replied that he could and would be so expressed, then once again called him to return to the house. By that time, several terrorists went into the settlement and began to look for a soldier. They dispersed throughout the village and continued to search, trying to understand who dared to create this with their brothers. The great general, in turn, climbed onto the roof of the house and prepared for the attack. The young man charged his automatic rifle and gently peered out from behind the shelter. Then, taking advantage of the moment, he jumped towards the thugs, thereby delivering a sudden blow. One of the terrorists only managed to turn around, as Lin was already in front of him. Feng began to mercilessly shoot bandits from 2 machine guns. It seemed to them not to be saved. Thus, the gang of sand wolves suffered huge losses, but several people were able to escape. One of the leaders of the group was able to hide behind the stone from the shelling of the general. All this time, the old man watched what was happening. Chaos through a hole in the house. Lin calmly destroyed dozens of bandits and gradually moved to the target. They tried to resist him, thereby subjecting himself to a painful death. The old man was dumbfounded by the young man's abilities because he alone figured out a whole gang, and the last whom he knew with such incredible power was precisely at the head of the sand wolves. At that moment, a soldier ran to his commander and said that this person was extremely dangerous and better to retreat. But the naive leader said that he should not be afraid of some ordinary. A moment later, he turned around and said that he would not leave anyone alive. However, in the place of the bandit was the main character who managed to silently deal with his subordinate. The young master grinned sarcastically and asked if he was trying to find him. The guy turned sharply to him and replied that he was not really so invisible. But the young cultivator managed to take the muzzle of the machine gun aside, and the terrorist could not shoot him. Then Feng completely arched the muzzle in the opposite direction, which simply struck the thug. The rest drew attention to what was happening and realized that the chapter was clearly problems. They immediately came to the conclusion that it was better for them to escape, since the enemy is clearly stronger. Lin suddenly heard the cries of terrorists and turned around where he saw how they were running away. The frightened bandits scattered in different directions, afraid not to leave alive. Meanwhile, the moon was on the roof of the building and ordered the soldiers to prepare for the attack. After a couple of seconds, Tao urged them to open fire. The soldiers instantly began to fulfill the order. Immediately, several terrorists were shot dead. The rest ran away in a panic. The angry soldiers, in turn, did not spare anyone and continued to kill sandy wolves. At that time, the leader of the gang tried to provoke one leader, because he instructed the gun to an unarmed person. Then Feng asked who he feels when he instructs weapons on defenseless citizens. The guy replied that he was really right, but he should leave him alive. The general asked what information he owns, since everything depends on this. The young man pushed pistol and said that he could help to penetrate his stronghold. He also noted that apparently they really brought a rustle, since the government sent the army, while threw off its bandana. It turned out that it was a girl. At that moment, Lun informed Fan that the mercenaries tried to escape, but they did not succeed. Suddenly, Tao discovered that in front of him was a girl who was in a grouping of sand wolves. At the same time, she knew who such a great warrior noted that his gang came, by adding that such garbage as them should not have appeared here at all. The embittered Moon reloaded the gun and said that she had no right to say that. Then he instructed her weapons and said that she would now go after the others. Suddenly, the young lady suggested telling them about the vulnerable places of the stronghold, in return for freedom. Feng noticed that she was not in the situation to conclude transactions. Besides, he does not trust the dubious personalities. However, the terrorist continued to dare and said that the main character was better to return home to her child and wife. The young master, in turn, did not endure this and immediately grabbed her, clutching her. He ordered his throat to tell about everything that she knew about the city stronghold. The girl in a stifled voice urged her to put on the ground so that she had such an opportunity. Then the young cultivator released her, and she collapsed to the ground. Electric discharges continued to run around Feng's hand. Caring well, the girl finally agreed to show them the way. She herself understood that, in fact, Lin managed to completely recover. The great warrior ordered the moon to follow her so that she would not make stupid things. Feng also ordered Chan to leave a soldier here in order to gain a foothold in Inju as long as possible. The guy immediately called on all the soldiers to fulfill the order of the general. Of course, no one was going to dispute him. Soon, they went on a long journey through the desert, along with a connected girl. Suddenly, she said that sand wolves were patrolling twice a day, and if one team did not return, they sent the second. Lin, in turn, asked her how far the eagle head was. The young lady smiled and said that after a couple of dunes, they would be in place. However, Chung checked the information with the map and stated that she was trying to deceive them, adding that there is nothing in the radius of 30 kilometers, and she leads them to the edge of the wasteland. What brought the moon to rabies, the young man once again charged the gun. Then he turned to her and instructed him on her, saying that if she wants to live, It is better not to invent anything. Suddenly, the terrorist said that no matter how strong Feng was, he would not be able to cope with the 9,000th army. And so she decided to save them, so as not to condemn the faithful and useless death. At that moment, the general heard the characteristic sound of the engine of the machine and turned. A moment later, an unknown jeep left the hill, falling asleep with sand. The girl, in turn, managed to bounce to the side so that he did not run into her. The car was a terrorist who greeted the young lady. Lin asked who they were. The girl said that these were vultures, and they are the most ruthless patrol of the Eaglehead. The bald bandit ordered his subordinates to deal with uninvited guests while he was engaged in a girl. Feng instantly grabbed the knife and ordered his friends not to make sudden movements without his command. Then he waited for the right moment when the thugs came closer. Then, with his lightning movements, he turned the vultures into minced meat. All were shocked by such an incredible strength and speed of the great general. The girl, in turn, was simply amazed at the abilities of the protagonist. The young master immediately ordered her to take them to the Eaglehead and without tricks, or she will die right here and now. The terrorist was naturally scared. The girl replied that she could carry them out, but the item was well protected and most likely they had already discovered them. Chung said that it doesn't matter, since he had already hacked the retranspect and intercepted the video from the surveillance cameras. Tao praised him for a good job and noticed that he was not in vain the head of the dragons. Lin rushed the Sapemans because they could not lose a minute. After a certain time, they finally reached the main base of terrorists. The hostage reported that their item is in front and a few meters are security. The sniper of the Sandwolves, meanwhile, had already entrusted the crosshairs of the aim to the car. Then he notified his partner about this, suggesting that these were vultures. The other noted that he was apparently bald, brought the prey, and soon they would have fun. The sniper instantly brought the sight to make sure that their man was driving. However, on the driver's seat was not bald, which he immediately informed his friend about. The young cultivator, in turn, noticed snipers upstairs and ordered the moon to deal with them. Tao climbed onto the roof and reloaded his rifle, after which he began to aim in them. At the same time, he stated that he had not tested his abilities for a long time and opened fire. After a moment, two snipers flew from a high structure straight to the ground. Hearing an extraneous noise, the rest of the patrols tried to contact them, but they did not get in touch. At that time, Feng shot down two more sandwolves on the road. The dumbfounded girl urged him not to do this, because now they will be discovered and they will become living targets. A couple of guards also heard characteristic sounds and decided to go downstairs to find out what happened. After a couple of seconds, Lin left behind the hill on the jeep and literally flew over. The frightened bandits hurried to inform the leader of the penetration group. The rest opened fire on them, but did not pay attention that they were next to explosive barrels. Lun got out again on the roof and began to shoot terrorists and hit the barrel. As a result, a huge explosion thundered, which naturally could not be noticed. The associated person continued to shout that fans should not act so aggressively, because there are hostages inside. However, Lin assured that he knew about this, and for him, human life is priceless, unlike them. Then he asked Chan how much time he needed to hack the enemy's defense. The guy said that almost everything was ready, but at that moment, a helicopter suddenly got behind them and began to pursue them. Feng understood that it was necessary to hide somewhere, since they could not survive in an open area. The hostage also urged them to find a cover so that they were not overtaken by sandwolves, but the protagonist found another way to stop the chase behind them and called on the moon to get behind the wheel. The young master himself took off high into the sky, straight to the enemy helicopter. The young cultivator managed to grab onto him and thereby restrained him on him. The shocked pilot could not understand how he managed to jump so highly. As soon as he activated his machine gun, the great warrior pulled out the installation. In the end result, this led to another explosion. Only this time in the sky, Tao said that only their boss was capable of this. Suddenly, the general landed on the roof of the car and gave the next order to the moon, calling him to follow him to break through the main gate. On the other side of the wall, terrorists began to get together to repulse the enemy. But as a result, the gates were broken and Feng flew over, rushing to the bandits. Lin hurried to deal with them with the help of his magical abilities. Following him, his team also stopped at the territory of the base, crushing the head of the thugs. There was a smell of blood and screams of dumbfounded mercenaries everywhere who had no salvation. Suddenly, the great warrior drew attention to the collapsing wall in front of him. The guy understood that something huge was moving on him and prepared for the attack. After a couple of seconds, huge stones flew towards the young master. The head of the terrorist group said that no one dares to break into his base. He went on his armored tank and instructed the muzzle of the tower on Feng. Most of his minions were delighted with such a turn of events, suggesting that Linya is ended. However, in fact, everything was not so simple. The old man did not know that he had signed a death sentence. Continuing the way on the tank, he said that the guy in vain climbed to him without an invitation. Soon, the beast head of the bandits shot from the tank, and the shell flew towards the general. Feng not only managed to evade him, but also prepared a surprise for a naive thug. The young man literally took off into the air, trying to direct the rocket into the crowd of terrorists. Then he hit the shell, and he flew exactly the target that he only angered the old man. Subsequently, another strong explosion thundered, and dozens of soldiers died. The embittered bandit leader said that he should not be underestimated, because he will simply crush him, after which he turned the tank towards the teenager. Suddenly, the main character clung to the tank, and even could slow him down. The head of the criminal group was shocked by such an incredible force of the guy. Soon, the young master completely turned his tank in the opposite direction. However, at the same time, the leader of the terrorists still managed to deploy him back. Thus, the barrel of the tower once again looked at the young cultivator. At the time of the shot, the great warrior closed the muzzle with his hand and activated the electric barrier. As a result, the tank simply torn apart, which the bandits were extremely surprised. Assuming that this is not a person but some kind of monster, they began to run away. Thus, having released the way to the general, and after a couple of minutes he went to the cage, where the hostages were forcibly held. People immediately jumped up, realizing that they had come to be released. But having asked the corresponding question, they did not hear the answer from the teenager, which, in turn, easily opened the grill and urged them to follow him. At this moment, one of the bold terrorists instructed them to be a machine gun and was already preparing to shoot. But at full speed, the moon flew into his jeep at full speed, thereby freeing it from a miserable existence. Tao completely drove through the body of the Golovores and only then stopped the car. Leaving the car, he noticed that the boss did an excellent job. Following him, the connected girl also came out. She did not believe her eyes. The base was destroyed. Suddenly, she called out a child's voice. The perplexing person turned. She saw her younger brother in front of her and rushed into his arms. The Malays began to resent that the general connected her sister Bin. The indignant loon said that in fact she is a killer. The child pushed away Tao and stated that she had saved all the townspeople and not any terrorist. Then he hastened to untie her hands and urged her grandfather to tell the military that she was not a bandit. The old man immediately said that this is really true, since they arrived here with a caravan, and Bin gave them refuge. Feng stated that in this case she was free, but if there is a sin behind her, then she would be not good. Then she said that she actually worked undercover and delivered information to Shane. After all, 3 groups constantly attended these lands and killed many soldiers. These were sand wolves, grizzly bears, and ancient snakes. Then Bin urged them to retreat, but Lin said that the soldiers should never retreat and asked the moon to take them back. The dumbfounded Tao, in turn, asked what his friend intends to do next. Feng extremely confidently replied that he was going to free the lands of his country. However, a friend volunteered to go with him. Unexpectedly, Bin also decided to help them. After all, she was also a citizen of her country, especially since the girl knew a short way to the Snake Road. But the main character objected because in this case there would be no one to protect ordinary people. Lun, in turn, insisted on his own and said that he was even ready to go to hell with him. Bin also did not change her decision, which was confident and informed him. Then the young master called everyone to go to the point to replenish their ammunition. At that moment, the young cultivator suddenly thought about his beloved wife, which meanwhile was still in Binghai under the supervision of Xiao. King noticed that the lady did not sleep all night and she should rest well, adding that if her husband found out about this, he would be very upset by this fact. But Yue said that no matter how much she worked, Fan is now much harder. The girl thought that Zhang's family really lost her face. After all, they dared to conspire with some clans in order to harm others. So she must have time to finish the work until irreversible chaos began. At that moment, her gaze fell into a photograph, where they, along with Linem and Blue, in the picture they had joyful faces, and they did not know that they were waiting ahead. Xiao understood how hard it was to her and called for her for any reason. Feng at that time was lying on the roof of the house under the starry sky, and looked at the photo of Jue. The guy began to mentally swear that it would end soon, and he would return to his family. After that, the young man kissed his wife's picture and went to bed with a calm soul. The next day, the work was in full swing in the village. where the old man collected all the supplies. Suddenly, the solid moon came out of the house and greeted everyone. Lin noticed that he had been sleeping for a long time. Grandfather, in turn, assured that he, although he was a merchant, would try to provide them with support as much as possible. Feng thanked him for his efforts, saying that it should be hard work for him. A few hours later, Tao and binoculars looked for new patrols of terrorists. At the same time, he wanted to see if there are living people in the city where there were only ruins. Bin sadly said that that was their path, and nothing can be done about it. Suddenly, Tao noticed that there was no longer a great warrior near him. Looking around, he never found the general and asked the rest where he went. In fact, Lin jumped down to quickly deal with everything. A faithful friend followed the main character, saying that he would not allow him to fight alone. Suddenly, Bin and Chan began to look closely at the location where they were, and suddenly they lit up that this is the kingdom of Invalids. Feng confirmed her assumptions. The perplexed Tao asked what they were talking about and what kind of place it was. The girl answered, "There is no owner here," adding that this is the most confusing place in the northwestern part of the country, but the most important thing is that here, all the forces and abilities will not be available to them. The young master, meanwhile, soared in the air and suddenly found that his skills did not work. In this connection, the young cultivator instantly began to fall down from a great height, which Loon reported. At this time, an unknown girl was in the bathhouse and looked at her faithful guard. Suddenly, she came to the conclusion that he was ugly and should be replaced. A moment later, the great general struck the glass ceiling. Everyone was in shock. Soon, Lin fell straight into the pool to the stranger. Initially, she did not understand what happened. The girl literally froze in place, as if analyzed what had happened. Feng immediately got to his feet, not understanding why his forces suddenly disappeared. But it was at that moment that the stranger's bodyguard put his machine gun to his head. At the same time, Verzilla learned in him that very great warrior and wondered how he appeared here. The girl hastened to get out of the pool and headed for the general, as she liked him. The young lady immediately applied its female tricks to place it to her. Then she asked if he wanted to become her man and whether he loves to obey. Lin pushed her and said that he was married, so they will not succeed. However, this did not stop the girl, and she continued to insist on her. Feng grabbed her hand and ordered not to touch him because he could make an exception and hit a woman. The smasher of the lady immediately demanded that he let go of the girl, or he would shoot him in the head. Lightning movement. The guy broke the gun machine gun and struck him. Naturally, the young lady admired the strength of the young man and wanted to get such a warrior for herself. After all, even given the loss of his skills, he was still extremely dangerous. In this connection, the thug threw a smoke grenade and rushed the mistress to run away, saying that they were not even... Then, he invited her to tie the guy and send her sandwolves, which would reward them with 20 million. An angry girl began to beat her bodyguard, saying that if her beauty did not work for him, then this is a stupid venture. But if they, ancient snakes, enlisted the support from the supreme southern continent, then everything would have changed. The leader of the ancient snakes instantly ordered her servant to bring her clothes. The main character, in turn, dissected the smoke from the grenade to catch up with the villains. Suddenly, she stopped him and asked him to listen to his patroness. The girl was called Nurbo Chile and said that she was the leader of the ancient snakes, and if a young master helps them destroy sandwolves, then she will obey him. But the young cultivator said that he would first kill them, and then he would do them. However, the young leader of the group stated that Feng should promise her. Since she has something that interests him, and he will definitely like it, the great warrior could not understand how he knew his name and what he wanted to offer. Nurba said that in the kingdom of Invalence there is an unusual magnetic field, so as not to violate the balance of abilities. And since his skills have disappeared, now he is nothing more than an ordinary soldier. And if he gets to the center of the kingdom and unlocks the system of restraining skills, he will restore his techniques. But in order to find this place, a snake scepter is needed, so she offers him cooperation. The perplexing Lin asked what was hiding under the forbidden system. At that moment, Lun finally found his friend in the company of an unknown girl. As a result, he instructed her a gun and ordered her not to move. Bin, in turn, figured out her guard. At the same time, Tao told Feng that a huge group of people was approaching them. The guy asked how much the number of soldiers is and what faction they belong to. A friend replied that about 100 people from a group of sandwolves. The young man urged everyone to prepare and organize an ambush. Chili continued to say that although they were different people, but at the moment they have one goal. The extremely surprised Lun could not understand whether she should trust her because they did not know each other. But Nurba again urged them to forget the old grievances in order to confront the sandwolves together. Then the general curled up if she had at least some plan of the battle. Chili suddenly replied that for men, the most terrible weapon are women. By that time, the soldiers of the sandwolves got closer to them and went inside the building. Nurba instantly jumped into the pool and called on Bin join her. Feng noticed that this could really work, because to go into a frontal clash would be stupid. A moment later, the soldiers of the terrorists went into the room and found two girls in the pool. Naturally, men could not ignore two charming girls. Sanding wolves, dumbfounded from such happiness, hurried to undress. Then they ran towards the pool to finally play with the girls. At that moment, Chili plunged Bin under the water and urged the protagonist to act. Lun, with a guard, Nurba, and a young master immediately opened fire on them. Thus, they eliminated a couple of dozen naive soldiers right in the pool. The brave girls, meanwhile, swam several meters underwater and reached the second exit. What implied a small lake, it seemed that everything went successfully. The young ladies swam out and again breathed with fresh air. Chili noted that it was exciting. Mu, in turn, caught herself thinking that she would no longer subscribe to such. Then she got out of the lake and introduced herself, asking her name of the leader of the ancient snakes. The girl also called her name and said that she is the leader of the group. Bin thought, because she behaved exactly as was written in the report on the investigation. Chili said that although it was difficult, but fortunately everything worked out. Our heroes, led by Fan, who shot the remaining terrorists, also approached them. The Moon, in turn, dragged a bag with a huge number of machine guns. Lin thought that he needed to unlock his skills as soon as possible, because without them not to overcome sandwolves. At the same time, he was interested in what the goal of Nurb actually pursues and what the Forbidden Zone is. Meanwhile, Xinhu thanked Zheng for his help once again. After all, without him, she would not have succeeded. Van said that it was not difficult for him. After all, this is less than he can help her. Besides, he owes her wife. After that, the guy presented her with a list of all members of the municipal entrepreneurs of Binghai, by adding that the new corporation has already begun work and Yue can become the chairman. Suddenly, the girl asked why they were all old hardening, because she always needed a fresh look. Zhenun explained that they are not rich enough to join the political or business company. He noticed that without the intervention of his family, she herself would not achieve such results. At the same time, the families of old hardening had deep roots in complex estates, so it is better to forget about their support. Suddenly, Yue asked Van if they could unite with new forces. Zheng said sadly that it would most likely be extremely difficult to do at the moment. The general's wife said that the information is also a distorted magnetic field, and it also attracts blood energy, because this is what Shen and his ritual wanted. Van said that Yan studied meteorite iron in the military ministry, and this means that they really need to do, noting that the lady is extremely wise. Xin Yue also said that the laboratory will always make a profit, and the new company was created to expand the business. Suddenly, she lit up that in fact her husband specifically created it all. Chen was struck by her insight and noted that her studies of meteorite iron were not in vain. Xiao also did not expect this from Yue and praised her, saying that Feng would be proud of her. Xin herself thought that a woman should also be a support for a man. By the evening, it was finally time for a banquet in the city of Binhai, where many people went. Where in front of all major investors, they called to speak to the new president of the company, Xinyu. Most of the guests were fascinated by her beauty and understood that she was really worthy of this. A moment later, an unimaginable Yue appeared on the stage and hastened to say her speech. The girl took the microphone from the host and thanked everyone present for their support. King stood aside and listened carefully to the mistress, hoping that all the hardships behind. She also thought about the current situation in the country, because families rebelled everywhere. There was a cruel war, and the three union known to all no longer had their strength. But since she had a token of black armor, Xiao had the opportunity to protect everyone. At this time, our valiant heroes arranged a halt, as Chili's bodyguard was injured. Mu became helped to help him bandage his hand and noticed that he looked strong, but at the same time was afraid of pain. The guy replied that he had no idea about the poisonous grass in the kingdom of Invarian. Nurba, in turn, said that she was ashamed of him because he was fighting the warriors, but he could not cope with the grass. The guard asked for forgiveness from his patroness and stated that henceforth would be more careful. Chili also asked Bin where the way out of this place was, because she was not the first time here. I ignored her question and said that she should be more respectful about her assistance. Thus, the girls began a dispute that gradually grew into a conflict. Suddenly, the brutal leader of the ancient snakes ordered her Verzile to hit Bin. However, the guy refrained from this order and stated that in general, the mud is right. The shocked Nurba asked if he really wants to betray her. The Thunder immediately began to say that he would go into the fire and in the water. Bin, in turn, began to understand why even sand wolves did not want to deal with them. Lun quietly laughed aside and suddenly said that he not only did not like it, Chili continued to verbally humiliate her ward and declare that when someone was rude to her, he is obliged to beat this person. Suddenly, the guy said that from now on they are as one team and he could not do that. The young master immediately interrupted their disputes and said that he had one idea. From this day, they have been working for the benefit of the team because everyone pursues one goal. Mu understood that even though Feng is the highest being, but not merciful, people, in principle, are extremely complex and imperfect residents of this planet. At that moment, the vulture, whom they naturally noticed, began to circle over them. The main character, in turn, tried to understand how far they are from the territory of the ancient snakes. Loon took out a gun and tried to shoot the bird, but the guard Nurba asked him not to do this. However, Tao had already managed to aim and fired, thereby injuring the vulture. Thunder could not understand that it was not so with this bird because she did not try to fly away and constantly circled over them. The blood of the wounded, unexpectedly bird hit the moon. The guy noticed that she was hot. At the same time, the vulture did not fall to the ground. This caused them some suspicions. Suddenly, the bird approached them, and they saw someone's hand in her beak. Tao once again slept the trigger to shoot an annoying vulture. But the leader of the ancient snakes extremely convincingly asked him not to do this. Chili herself decided to take advantage of her magical power. Her staff shone sharply. No one could understand what she was going to do. Nurba continued a certain witchcraft. But suddenly the bird flew down with a stone. The girl realized, something is wrong here. In the end result, the dead vulture collapsed to the ground. Tao began to look closely at him. Bin noted that it was a friend of a young master shot and the bird died. However, Chili felt the presence of someone in the proximity, which did not give her rest. It was quite strange because they were on the territory of ancient snakes. The young cultivator said that her clan welcomes people quite originally. Then he asked that she had in her hands. A thoughtful girl looked at Feng. Then she replied that it was a double scepter, which was supposed to destroy the vulture. Lin again said that she had a less interesting approach to animals. Soon the guy took a cut hand and began to think where the bird could find it in the desert. Chan immediately caught himself and asked his friend to let him look at this brush. Having discovered fresh blood, the young man came to the conclusion that a person died only recently, and judging by the tone of the skin and its roughness, it was a native of ancient snakes. At the same time, he compared all the components with a photograph of one of the Nurba's minions. Chili noted she was really too busy and forgot that they were here, and this could only mean that the enemy could be nearby and surveillance of them. Meanwhile, in the gymnasium in the Binhai city center, there was an assistant to the protagonist. Xiao looked at the map and talked about the fact that the Jo family in the east and the clan in the west, the Sun family in the north gathering an army. Thus, Qing understood that spies were everywhere, because the army all this time was promoted freely. In this regard, Qing concluded that part of the army is clearly already in the city. Then the girl turned to her warriors from black armor and ordered them to defend the great warrior. Naturally, the soldiers all replied that it was a great honor for them, which could not but rejoice the young servant of the young master who did not waste time. At that moment, the general of the black armor group ran up to Qing and reported that special forces would soon join them. Also on 8 streets of Binghai, people in civilian clothes were discovered, and they tried to hide. Xiao urged him not to scream on such confidential issues, since it is possible that there may be a spy here. After that, the girl asked him to show on the map where exactly they are. The general instantly pressed the corresponding button, and the picture was taken to a huge screen. The guy went to a large map and began to show her exactly where active events are being taken. Then, the military said that at that moment Longstreet was on the street, and most likely this is in the Lufang Medical Center. Qing, in turn, was surprised. She once again asked the general, "Is it really an old man Li with little Yuisin there?" The guy answered positively. Then Xiao called him not to waste time and go there. Qing herself could not understand how they found out that she was conducting special forces as spies. Coming to the streets of the city, the warrior asked the general, "Where the promised help?" The young man said that they will soon be, and the Green Dragon ambassador is also here. The perplexing girl asked the military, "Did they really stuff everything into the car?" The general said that she would learn about everything. But later, Xiao continued to feel strange, realizing that a spy was clearly wrapped in black armor. Suddenly, she remembered that in her youth they were beaten for theft. And when he got into the clan, the days were not calm. The general himself thought that he should lure the green dragon into his territory, realizing perfectly well that in fact, every person has its own price and this time they gave too much. Meanwhile, Qing discovered two soldiers behind the car and was surprised. The guys calmly dined. The young lady asked if they were the promised special forces. Then the perplexing assistant to the young cultivator turned to the military and asked the same question. The frightened military did not know what to tell her. Xiao at that time began to beat the soldiers. After filling one to the ground, Qing stepped on him and called for telling the truth what was happening here. The frightened young man said that he simply decided to eat, and she attacked him. Adding that Ho deceived him, the general himself was furious because he warned them. Suddenly, the traitor took out a keychain and pressed the button, saying that it is time to put an end to this performance. Xiaoxin instantly turned back and saw the cars began to go to her. A moment later, cars literally filled the whole street. Qing hurried to Ho. At the same time, she managed to deliver several more crushing strikes to his accomplices. Finally, the assistant to the protagonist rushed towards the traitor and asked what kind of ambush it was. Then she said that she would destroy the stupid HO, because he had no right to do this. The guy, in turn, smiled and asked if she could fly. The girl turned around, where I saw how the car flies to it. After it and other cars rushed in her direction. She quite cleverly avoided a collision with them and hastened to get out of this trap. However, there were too many cars, and Qing began to beat them in order to clear his way. Soon she again rushed to Ho, saying that she did not expect such a setup from him and still kill him. After a couple of seconds, Xiaoxin attacked the general and began to apply a series of blows to him. But at the same time, she found that her forces seemed to evaporate, and she could not defeat him. The self-confident military man, meanwhile, felt an advantage and also attacked it. Then he said that black armor is now modified by diamonds, adding that without her, he would not challenge such a strong warrior. Qing was constantly wondering how he controls the machines. A moment later, several cars rushed in her direction again. Ho, in turn, continued to laugh, saying that his time had finally arrived. However, he suddenly began to lift the power unknown to him into the height. Following him, the wars of black armor with cars also rushed into the air. Xiao unexpectedly saw Yuisin, who aroused unknown power in herself. Qing was dumbfounded by such a surprise and shouted to a little girl. The shocked Ho could understand what was happening and how he went around again. At that time, Xin continued to play and sent several more warriors to heaven. The old man Li approached her and noticed that the little princess was really well done. The girl smiled and ran to Xiaoqin, who was also immensely glad of their meeting. The assistant to the young master, in turn, sat down to Yu and said that now everything would be in order, adding that if not for her, then this traitor could cause her a lot of problems. In response, the baby said that soon she would become even stronger and would help Dad. At that moment, a joyful Xinyu ran up to them and naturally first went to her daughter. The girl also saw her mother and enthusiastically ran to meet her. Having said that she had a lot of missing her, Yue reciprocated her and took her in her arms. Then she asked a couple of ordinary questions whether she behaved well and ate whether she ate today. Yu answered positively. The old man noticed that Xin could now better control his strength. Qing suddenly congratulated the young mistress because her company achieved unprecedented results. Xin Yu put her daughter on the ground and said sadly that, in fact, not everything was so simple. In addition, she did not think how hard work was and all the time you need to be on the alert. However, for the sake of her beloved family, she is ready for absolutely any tests. Suddenly, Yu asked her mother when they finally meet with Dad. The girl said that it would happen very soon and she should wait a bit. Xiao understood that Yue needed help, but at first it was necessary to bring the matter to the end. After all, Ko turned out to be a rat, and it was worth talking to find out in detail. After a certain time, Qing tied the general and closed in the room, where he began to interrogate him. Naturally, he said nothing. Besides, he had nothing to lose, because he had no family and friends, and the only thing she could threaten him was a shot in the head. But even that he was not afraid. Realizing that she would not get anything from him, Xiao shut his mouth with a keychain from the car. Then she said that he could not bother himself in excessively angry statements. After that, the warrior of the great general took out another keys to the car. She crushed a keychain and there was a certain fee inside him. Qing smiled, having stated that in a few minutes she will still have all the information about his boss. Therefore, it is better for him to tell everything himself. But Ho again refused. He also noted that the only one who can resist her is a white tiger. Xiao, in turn, thought about, trying to understand who he specifically talks about. The general continued to say that the White Tiger ambassador works hard in the Northwest, and then he decided to follow him. Meanwhile, our heroes approached the unknown door, from where the gun flew out. At the same time, the revolver arbitrarily fired several shots into the air. However, one of their bullets ended exactly in the cable that held a certain load. The dumbfounded Bin Mu instantly rushed in an unknown direction. The perplexing Lun asked what she was doing and why she was so panicked. The girl, in turn, urged him to let her hand out to look at something interesting. Tao came closer to her and saw a lizard on the ground. He noticed that Bin had a good heart, but at the same time her eyes seemed strange to him, as if the animal did not like him. The main character, meanwhile, raised a revolver from the ground and said that they should not lose for a second. After all, in this house perhaps there was a murder, and they need to find out everything. But as soon as the young cultivator opened the front door, Mu called him to stop. Then she offered to surround the house to prevent the killer from escaping. The young master said that at first she tried to save an ordinary lizard, and now he is trying to hide something special, but she does it very badly. Lun, in turn, began to look at her more carefully. Beware of the next trick. At that moment, the lizard suddenly found a hole in a tree and hastened to crawl into it. Feng also asked Bin that she was actually hiding from them. Then he shot a hole where the lizard climbed, but Mu continued to be silent. Tao began to realize that she was an extremely dangerous personality and someone could be outside the door. The guy immediately went into the room and shouted so that the unknowns immediately left, but no one showed up. Suddenly Bin tried to escape, but she failed to do this. Since right at the entrance stood a guard of the leader of the ancient snakes, Lin ordered him not to lower his eyes off her and not let him escape, since she is obliged to tell them everything. The guy himself hurried to break through the wall with electrical discharges. Behind the wooden foundation was a dead man, but there was clearly something wrong with him. He had scales and tail like a lizard. Also, his left eye completely mutated into this creature. Nurba asked anyone not to approach him and personally approached the deceased. Chili, in turn, perfectly understood that he was the ancestor of the ancient snakes. The main character asked if he could transform. The girl answered negatively. Then she confidently stated that this woman turned her people into lizards. The angry moon instantly pressed Mu to the wall and ordered her to tell everything. The leader of the ancient snakes, meanwhile, expressed his condolences to the mistress. Chili called him to pronounce their prayer so that the soul rests on their fellow. And only Bin perfectly understood what would happen now and grinned maliciously. Suddenly, in the hands of Verzila, the dead man's body began to literally swell. After a couple of seconds, it exploded into small pieces. All were shocked by such a turn.